Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin McCall. I'm the General Manager of DL Seeds, and I am standing in our PIC project. It is to develop high-protein yellow pea varieties for the Western Canadian marketplace. Behind me is what we call our F2 nursery. So we've taken 12 lines, yellow pea lines, with high protein potential and made crosses. And we developed about 1,200 individual breeding lines that we will be selecting for powdery mildew resistance in this nursery. From this nursery, we will only select the best 10% of the lines, and we'll be moving them to Chile this fall for increasing. And with the hope that after several generations that we will have a commercial product from one of these lines that we will be marketing through our PIC partner, Seednet, in southern Alberta. But also coming off this nursery will be a lot of information and data, and we will be giving that information over to our other PIC partner, Sightline, to do database work with and to develop their artificial intelligence in terms of breeding for yellow peas. So with that, say farewell and have a great day.
We are currently trying to create a plant-based protein supplement that will work as well as whey protein isolate on muscle health.
As we look to, I think we all know that there needs to be a shift. I'm not saying that people have to eliminate using animal-based products, but if there's a shift, I think it will help, help health and help the planet. And I think in order to make an effective shift, you have to make products that taste as good as the animal-based options, and that's what we're proving we can do so far in the project. One of the, unexpected results as we've worked through this project was when we're dealing with such a pure plant-based protein isolate, we didn't expect some of the foaming that we're seeing in a ready-to-mix product. So our products are powders that get mixed into water. When you shake them with these very pure plant-based protein isolates, we're seeing increased foaming. So that was an unexpected result. We've since worked through that.
Yeah, very excited about that, and also very excited to get our product into a clinical trial that we will be running through McMaster University. And so there has been some delays. This was actually supposed to be underway starting this summer, but it looks like we are ready to go starting in the fall. And what's really interesting about this study is that we'll be able to compare this plant-based protein directly against whey protein isolate, which is the gold standard for muscle health. And this makes our study unique because oftentimes these comparisons don't happen within these clinical trials, and that's why we're really excited to really be able to look at what is the effect of our plant-based protein powders, so we know that it's actually going to do what it's supposed to do.
Good morning, my name is Kelly Lindsay, President and CEO of Indigenous Works, and I'm pleased to give you this short update on Luminary, advancing Indigenous innovation in the agribusiness sector. To start with, there's really three things I want to focus on. We've launched a charter which basically describes the co-creation of a strategy, and we are inviting partners. We've had an opportunity to meet with the 13 Deans of Agriculture in Canada, many other groups, and orientate them to the work ahead. Number two, we've started a mapping exercise to look at the profile of this sector, which is not really well understood, and we're doing deep dives into some very, very interesting areas such as mushrooms, berries, and many, many other sectors. And finally, we're really looking forward to our first national gathering of Luminary agribusiness partners on September 27th, when we assemble them for our first gathering to start to go a deeper dive into the strategy sessions around the agribusiness strategy. Thank you very much.
Through this project, we've been working collaboratively with two companies. One is Mature Seeds, the other is Winning Combination. This collaboration opportunity has been great for us. On the Mature side, we've been able to work with them to help enable our front end in terms of both Combination, on the other hand, has definitely provided us with great insight in terms of overall functionality and sensory components of our final products as we've been commissioning our facility. Beyond that, I think PIC has definitely provided us with all sorts of other new opportunities for collaboration. Many new opportunities have come through PIC in terms of initializing discussions with new and unique companies around the world looking for Canadian supply of great plant-based proteins. So we're very happy with the relationship with PIC and with the collaboration opportunities that have come from it.
My name is Palm Greaves, president of Futura Seeds. We've completed a PIC project with Merit Functional Foods and the Winning Combination. The PIC project has helped us build a supply chain from the farmer to the end-use customer. I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done to help bring opportunities to Western Canada farmers. And for that, I want to say thank you to our partners, Protein Industries Canada, the Winning Combination, and Merit Functional Foods. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim Millington of Canada Protein Ingredients, Ingredients Protique de Canada, and I'm here in this field of soybeans to tell you about an exciting project that we are working on. The Canadian soybean supply chain is the best in the world, and together with our consortium partners, we are bringing high-quality, clean-label Canadian soy protein to the world stage. CPI IPC will produce product lines of non-GMO and organic soy protein for global and domestic markets. We've just completed a successful pilot research study that is laying the foundation for our commercial launch within the next 18 months. We are excited to move to the next stage in our plan to support Canadian agriculture and processing. We are thrilled to be one of the many amazing projects partnered with PIC. The encouragement and the support that we have received from PIC has been instrumental in moving our project forward.
Essentially, when we start on a path that we both know the end result, we can work collaboratively to get to that result. So we're getting to those end results quicker than we would be in the old method of both doing our own thing and then figuring out a way to mash things together at the end. With the availability of the funding from the PIC project, it really has allowed us to do the things that we've always wanted to do. In our first year of the project, we've captured over 18,000 observations in our scouting app. The hardest thing to do when you're building models, especially machine learning models, is to acquire data. And with the help of PIC, we were able to accomplish that.
The team we've developed around us with AGT, with PIC, all these world leaders that are growing and creating this entire plant-based movement across the world. It's so exciting to be a part of this ecosystem and to be with these global leaders. We're so humbled and honored and excited. Also, we finally got our first product, Plant Protein 2.0. It's delicious. We're getting it into stores now too, which has been really exciting for us. The chefs are loving it too, which is also really good. So we're getting lots of traction, and we just got on with a big distributor, which we're also really excited about.
We're really, proud that we've been able to be a part of, working with Laura and Carla and their team, and really advancing, the Ulivit plant-based food initiatives. On our side, the whole extrusion side of our business is really booming, and this project has given us a lot of additional resources and additional strength to be developing high moisture meat analogs, texturized protein alternatives. We've been looking, further and further at alternatives to yellow pea. So yellow pea plus faba beans plus lentils plus chickpeas. And, there's been all kinds of great results with some major global consumer products brands launching products in the market over the last few months and a whole bunch of new launches coming.
Well, our PIC project is really about utilizing our novel pea and canola proteins to create value-added textures and flavors and nutritional profiles in high-moisture extruded products. And so one of the most exciting things that we've done to date is utilize our canola for the first time in materials that make meat alternatives, such as this chicken nugget that I'm holding right here. So we've been able to firm up the texture of our meat alternatives and also create a better nutritional profile, and we've been able to actually bring it to life.
In the not too distant future, after we continue with our trials at our research partners facility, we're going to transform our proteins into better high moisture extruded products that we're looking forward to watching Grand River turn into value for their product line and bring some next generation meat alternatives to the market, and hopefully delighting their consumers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin McCall. I'm the general manager of DL Seeds, and I am standing in our PIC project. It is to develop high protein yellow pea varieties for the Western Canadian marketplace. Behind me is what we call our F2 nursery. So we've taken 12 lines, yellow pea lines, with high protein potential and made crosses. And we developed about 1,200 individual breeding lines that we will be selecting for powdery mildew resistance in this nursery. From this nursery, we only select the best 10% of the lines, and we'll be moving them to Chile this fall for increasing. And with the hope that after several generations that we will have a commercial product from one of these lines that we will be marketing through our PIC partner, Seednet, in southern Alberta. But also coming off this nursery will be a lot of information and data, and we will be giving that information over to our other PIC partner, Sightline, to do database work with and to develop their artificial intelligence in terms of breeding for yellow peas. So with that, say farewell and have a great day.
We are currently trying to create a plant-based protein supplement that will work as well as whey protein isolate on muscle health.
As we look to, I think we all know that there needs to be a shift. I'm not saying that people have to eliminate using animal-based products, but if there's a shift, I think it will help, help health and help the planet. And I think in order to make an effective shift, you have to make products that taste as good as the animal-based options, and that's what we're proving we can do so far in the project. One of the, unexpected results as we've worked through this project was when we're dealing with such a pure plant-based protein isolate, we didn't expect some of the foaming that we're seeing in a ready-to-mix product. So our products are powders that get mixed into water. And when you shake them with these very pure plant-based protein isolates, we're seeing increased foaming. So that was an unexpected result. We've since worked through that.
Yeah, very excited about that, and also very excited to get our product into a clinical trial that we will be running through McMaster University. And so there has been some delays. This was actually supposed to be underway starting this summer, but it looks like we are ready to go starting in the fall. And what's really interesting about this study is that we'll be able to compare this plant-based protein directly against whey protein isolate, which is the gold standard for muscle health. And this makes our study unique because oftentimes these comparisons don't happen within these clinical trials, and that's why we're really excited to really be able to look at what is the effect of our plant-based protein powders, so we know that it's actually going to do what it's supposed to do.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Lindsay, President and CEO of Indigenous Works, and I'm pleased to give you this short update on Luminary, advancing Indigenous innovation in the agribusiness sector. To start with, there's really three things I want to focus on. We've launched a charter which basically describes the co-creation of a strategy, and we are inviting partners. We've had an opportunity to meet with the 13 Deans of Agriculture in Canada, many other groups, and orientate them to the work ahead. Number two, we've started a mapping exercise to look at the profile of this sector, which is not really well understood, and we're doing deep dives into some very, very interesting areas such as mushrooms, berries, and many, many other sectors. And finally, we're really looking forward to our first national gathering of Luminary agribusiness partners on September 27th, when we assemble them for our first gathering to start to go a deeper dive into the strategy sessions around the agribusiness strategy. Thank you very much.
Through this project, we've been working collaboratively with two companies. One is Mature Seeds, the other is Winning Combination. This collaboration opportunity has been great for us. On the Mature side, we've been able to work with them to help enable our front end in terms of both seed cleaning as well as supply of pea and canola. Winning Combination, on the other hand, has definitely provided us with great insight in terms of overall functionality and sensory components of our final products as we've been commissioning our facility. Beyond that, I think PIC has definitely provided us with all sorts of other new opportunities for collaboration. Many new opportunities have come through PIC in terms of initializing discussions with new and unique companies around the world looking for Canadian supply of great plant-based proteins. So we're very happy with the relationship with PIC and with the collaboration opportunities that have come from it.
My name is Tom Greaves, President of Mature Seeds. We've completed a PIC project with Merit Functional Foods and the Winning Combination. The PIC project has helped us build a supply chain from the farmer to the end-use customer. I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done to help bring opportunities to Western Canada farmers. And for that, I want to say thank you to our partners, Protein Industries Canada, the Winning Combination, and Merit Functional Foods. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Bill Grewal at Protein Industries Canada. Thank you so much for taking the time to log in. We've been at this, we've been at these platforms now for 18 months, working in a virtual environment. But I'm really sorry. We've had technical difficulties on our end with respect to the delineation between voting and non-voting members. I'm extremely sorry, but we're going to have to stop the annual general meeting, and those of you who are actively logged in will need to log in again in about 10 minutes. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We will try our best to make up the time, but I'm going to ask members who are logged in to please leave the system and come back in approximately 10 minutes.
The general manager of DL Seeds, and I am standing in our PIC project. It is to develop high protein yellow pea varieties for the Western Canadian marketplace. Behind me is what we call our F2 nursery. So we've taken 12 lines, yellow pea lines, with high protein potential and made crosses. And we developed about 1,200 individual breeding lines that we will be selecting for powdery mildew resistance in this nursery. From this nursery, we only select the best 10% of the lines, and we'll be moving them to Chile this fall for increasing. And with the hope that after several generations that we will have a commercial product from one of these lines that we will be marketing through our PIC partner, Seednet, in southern But also coming off this nursery will be a lot of information and data, and we will be giving that information over to our other PIC partner, Sightline, to do database work with and to develop their artificial intelligence in terms of breeding for yellow peas. So with that, say farewell and have a great day.
We are currently trying to create a plant-based protein supplement that will work as well as whey protein isolate on muscle health.
As we look to, I think we all know that there needs to be a shift. I'm not saying that people have to eliminate using animal-based products, but if there's a shift, I think it will help, help health and help the planet. And I think in order to make an effective shift, you have to make products that taste as good as the animal-based options, and that's what we're proving we can do so far in the project. One of the, unexpected results as we've worked through this project was when we're dealing with such a pure plant-based protein isolate, we didn't expect some of the foaming that we're seeing in a ready-to-mix product. So our products are powders that get mixed into water. And when you shake them with these very pure plant-based protein isolates, we're seeing increased foaming. So that was an unexpected result. We've since worked through that.
Yeah, very excited about that, and also very excited to get our product into a clinical trial that we will be running through McMaster University. And so there has been some delays. This was actually supposed to be underway starting this summer, but it looks like we are ready to go starting in the fall. And what's really interesting about this study is that we'll be able to compare this plant-based protein directly against whey protein isolate, which is the gold standard for muscle health. And this makes our study unique because oftentimes these comparisons don't happen within these clinical trials, and that's why we're really excited to really be able to look at what is the effect of our plant-based protein powders, so we know that it's actually going to do what it's supposed to do.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Lindsay, President and CEO of Indigenous Works, and I'm pleased to give you this short update on Luminary, advancing Indigenous innovation in the agribusiness sector. To start with, there's really three things I want to focus on. We've launched a charter which basically describes the co-creation of a strategy, and we are inviting partners. We've had an opportunity to meet with the 13 Deans of Agriculture in Canada, many other groups, and orientate them to the work ahead. Number two, we've started a mapping exercise to look at the profile of this sector, which is not really well understood, and we're doing deep dives into some very, very interesting areas such as mushrooms, berries, and many, many other sectors. And finally, we're really looking forward to our first national gathering of Luminary agribusiness partners on September 27th, when we assemble them for our first gathering to start to go a deeper dive into the strategy sessions around the agribusiness strategy. Thank you very much.
Through this project, we've been working collaboratively with two companies. One is Mature Seeds, the other is Winning Combination. This collaboration opportunity has been great for us. On the Mature side, we've been able to work with them to help enable our front end in terms of both seed cleaning as well as supply of pea and canola. Winning Combination, on the other hand, has definitely provided us with great insight in terms of overall functionality and sensory components of our final products as we've been commissioning our facility. Beyond that, I think PIC has definitely provided us with all sorts of other new opportunities for collaboration. Many new opportunities have come through PIC in terms of initializing discussions with new and unique companies around the world looking for Canadian supply of great plant-based proteins. So we're very happy with the relationship with PIC and with the collaboration opportunities that have come from it.
My name is Tom Greaves, President of Mature Seeds. We've completed a PIC project with Merit Functional Foods and the Winning Combination. The PIC project has helped us build a supply chain from the farmer to the end-use customer. I'm extremely proud of the work that we've done to help bring opportunities to Western Canada farmers. And for that, I want to say thank you to our partners, Protein Industries Canada, the Winning Combination, and Merit Functional Foods. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim Millington of Canada Protein Ingredients, Ingredients Protique de Canada, and I'm here in this field of soybeans to tell you about an exciting project that we are working on. The Canadian soybean supply chain is the best in the world, and together with our consortium partners, we are bringing high-quality, clean-label Canadian soy protein to the world stage. CPI IPC will produce product lines of non-GMO and organic soy protein for global and domestic markets. We've just completed a successful pilot research study that is laying the foundation for our commercial launch within the next 18 months. We are excited to move to the next stage in our plan to support Canadian agriculture and processing. We are thrilled to be one of the many amazing projects partnered with PIC. The encouragement and the support that we have received from PIC has been instrumental in moving our project forward.
Essentially, when we start on a path that we both know the end result, we can work collaboratively to get to that result. So we're getting to those end results quicker than we would be in the old method of both doing our own thing and then figuring out a way to mash things together at the end. With the availability of the funding from the PIC project, it really has allowed us to do the things that we've always wanted to do. In our first year of the project, we've captured over 18,000 observations in our scouting app. You know, the hardest thing to do when you're building models, especially machine learning models, is to acquire data. And with the help of PIC, we were able to accomplish that.
The team we've developed around us with AGT, with PIC, all these world leaders that are like, growing and creating this entire plant-based movement across the world. It's so exciting to be a part of this ecosystem and to be with these global leaders. We're so humbled and honored and excited. Also, we finally got our first product, Plant Protein 2.0. It's delicious. We're getting it into stores now too, which has been really exciting for us. The chefs are loving it too, which is also really good. So we're getting lots of traction, and we just got on with a big distributor, which we're also really excited about.
We're really, proud that we've been able to be a part of, working with Laura and Carla and their team, and really advancing, the Yulavit plant-based food initiatives. On our side, the whole extrusion side of our business is really booming, and this project has given us a lot of additional resources and additional strength to be developing high moisture meat analogs, texturized protein alternatives. We've been looking further and further at alternatives to yellow pea. So yellow pea plus faba beans plus lentils plus chickpeas. And there's been all kinds of great results with some major global consumer products brands launching products in the market over the last few months, and a whole bunch of new launches coming.
Well, our PIC project is really about utilizing our novel pea and canola proteins to create value-added textures and flavors and nutritional profiles in high moisture extruded products. And so one of the most exciting things that we've done to date is utilize our canola for the first time in materials that make meat alternatives, such as this chicken nugget that I'm holding right here. So we've been able to firm up the texture of our meat alternatives and also create a better nutritional profile, and we've been able to actually bring it to life.
In the not too distant future, after we continue with our trials at our research partners facility, we're going to transform our proteins into better high moisture extruded products that we're looking forward to watching Grand River turn into value for their product line and bring some next generation meat alternatives to the market, and hopefully delighting their consumers.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin McCall. I'm the General Manager of DL Seeds, and I am standing in our PIC project. It is to develop high protein yellow pea varieties for the Western Canadian marketplace. Behind me is what we call our F2 nursery. So we've taken 12 lines, yellow pea lines, with high protein potential and made crosses. And we developed about 1,200 individual breeding lines that we will be selecting for powdery mildew resistance in this nursery. From this nursery, we only select the best 10% of the lines, and we'll be moving them to Chile this fall for increasing. And with the hope that after several generations that we...
Well, good morning, everyone. My notes say that it's 9:30 here in Saskatchewan, but we all know that that's no longer true. And the fourth paragraph of my notes say, please be patient with our technology, but we've already demonstrated your need to do that. And so I do appreciate you dealing with the technical difficulties we had this morning. I'm sure most of you know me by now. My name is Bill Greuel. I'm CEO at Protein Industries Canada, and I'm very excited to welcome you to our AGM. This is now our third AGM and our second that is virtual. While we are again virtual this year, I would like to acknowledge that for those of us in Regina, we are on Treaty 4 territory. That is the original lands of the Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Though I would have preferred to see you all in person today, we've worked to bring you what we hope is an informative and exciting session, one that highlights our progress over the past 3 years while also looking into the future. One element I'm very excited to share with you is our series of video updates from our project partners. At Protein Industries Canada, we now have 27 technology projects, 13 capacity building projects, with more than 200 partners from across Canada and globally. The collaborative consortia behind these projects have been making great progress, and through their efforts are building Canada's plant-based food, feed, and ingredient sector. We wanted to take our AGM as an opportunity to showcase their projects and their progress. You may have seen some of these videos prior to the start of the program, one that featured our partners, DL Seeds, EMN, and Indigenous Works. We will be showcasing these projects throughout the AGM. And in addition to our formal annual general meeting, we have two panels that I'm excited to bring you today. The first panel, Achieving Excellence, will bring leaders from a range of sectors and will provide insight into how a sector can plan for and collaborate to achieve excellence. The second panel will bring things a bit closer as we take what we heard from the first and apply it to our own journey. I'm hopeful these conversations will spark people's interest in how we can achieve the recommended actions and outcomes introduced in the Road to 25 billion. In case you missed it, just prior to our AGM, we officially released the Road to 25 billion, a plan for Canada's plant-based food, feed, and ingredient ecosystem. I will share more on the roadmap later, but I'm very excited to start these discussions. Today's proceedings will last approximately 2 hours, with the business of the corporation lasting approximately 1 hour and the panels for the remainders. So before we officially start the meeting, we're going to play a short video to help explain how the voting platform works.
Welcome to the virtual AGM voting system. Please ensure that you are using an up-to-date version of Chrome, Firefox, Edge Chromium, or Safari. Note that Internet Explorer and the old version of Edge are not supported. If you have voting rights, you have been provided a username and password. You select the top button. If you do not have voting rights, you select the bottom button. You will not see this screen if your organization does not allow guests to view the proceedings. If you have voting rights, you will be presented with this screen. Your username and password will have been provided to you before the meeting. If you do not have voting rights, you will be presented with this screen. You must provide us with the required information to proceed. Once you are logged in, you should see a screen divided in half, either horizontally like this or vertically if you are using a device with a smaller screen. If you do not see both sides of the screen, you may have to adjust your browser zoom settings by pressing the Control key and the minus key at the same time. If the video does not start playing automatically, you will have to press play. On the left, you have the information screen. You will see information pertaining to your event. On the right, you have the broadcast screen. If your meeting is available in more than one language, you will have the ability to select which stream you want to listen to by clicking here. You can expand the broadcast to make it larger by clicking here. The broadcast is now almost filling your screen. You can return to the interactive portion by clicking here. To send a message to the moderator, you click here. At the bottom of the screen, you have a box which will allow you to type in your message or question. Click Send when you are satisfied with your message. You will receive a notification that your message was received. Once the moderator has approved your message, it will show up in this window. When a vote is opened, you will see your options presented on the information side of the screen. If you have maximized your broadcast window, it will automatically become smaller, so the vote becomes the focus. When you make your selection, it will highlight, and you will see a message that your vote has been received. You can change your selection at any time during the voting period. When the voting period is closed, your selection will black out and will be locked in. You will no longer be able to change your selection. Once the results are verified, they will be displayed on the screen or the results will be announced. If the vote requires you to select more than one choice, you will have to select the number of choices indicated. You will then have to hit Send and then verify that the system is indicating that your vote has been received. You can change your selections during the voting period by clicking Cancel and making your new selections, and again hitting Send. When the voting period is closed, your selections will black out and will be locked in. You will no longer be able to change your selections. Once the results are verified, they will be displayed on the screen or the results will be announced. Thank you.
So members may submit questions at any time through the online portal, and we will address these questions at the appropriate time in the agenda. With that, I would like to pass it over to Frank Hart, the Chair of Protein Industries Canada, to officially start the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And as mentioned, I am Frank Hart, the Chair of the Protein Industries Canada Board. And on behalf of the entire board and staff of the organization, I'd like to welcome you to our AGM. I will now call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I want to start with a test question, as I did last year, to make sure that we're all comfortable using the system. And last year, my question was about plant-based burgers and whether people had tried one. So I'm going to stick with the same question again this year and see how many AGM attendees are aligned with the national trend towards increased consumption of plant-based foods. Now, this year we did a study with Plant-Based Foods of Canada with a Nielsen study looking at the growth of retail sales in plant-based products, and we saw a 25% growth in plant-based foods this past year to 650 million. So I'm curious as to how many of you were part of that 650 million increased spending. So the question is, this summer, did you throw a plant-based burger or a flexitarian burger on the grill? And so I'm looking for your answer, which is yes, I love plant-based protein, or no, beef still wins for burgers. So while we wait for the vote, and the voting is underway, as Bill mentioned, we're going to be showing you a series of videos. Each of these videos were submitted by our project partners, And so we're very pleased that each of them took the time to create these videos, and I think they're very illuminating in terms of the things that are going on in Canada in the plant-based foods area. Our first video comes from Avena Foods, which is located both in Regina and Portage-la Prairie, and Avena was our first project with not only one, but 2 international consortium members. So let's watch the video now.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Byrne, president of Big Mountain Foods, and we are one of 5 companies that has kicked off a 3-year project last fall with PIC. We have been exploring the potential use of tempered whole pulses and oat flours in our processes. The consortium partners include Avena Foods, Big Mountain Foods, Daya Foods, Baconology, and Village Bakery from the UK. Project partners are testing and commercializing plant-based foods using pulse and oat flours, specially milled by Avena. I would like to say a few words on behalf of each of the consortium partners now. Daya Foods is looking forward to exploring how pulse flours can enhance the functionality and nutritional quality of different plant-based foods. Avena CEO Gord Flayton says, "From this project, we expect to be able to identify the best tempered flours for a range of potential food applications. We will also be able to offer customers functional and nutritional information that will help solve their new product development and ingredient substitution needs." Big Mountain has successfully commissioned a pilot plant and is now moving into commercialization of a first-of-its-kind product using Avena pulses. Baconology Blends owner and director Ken Laidlaw says, "Our aim is to develop pulse-based egg alternatives using Canadian-sourced raw materials that possess the same functional properties as a whole egg." The Village Bakery in North Wales is testing Avena pulse flours to produce innovative and bespoke breads, pies, rolls, and morning goods that reflect the traditional, distinctive tastes of their country. On behalf of all consortium members, we thank you for believing in us, and we look forward to the next 2 years ahead.
Okay. The results are in, and it looks like 12, yeah, we just have a slight majority of people who've tried them this year. So that's an improvement over last year where the majority had not yet tried plant-based foods. So good news there. So let's begin with the official business. And first off, just want to make note that we had 250 people registered today, and I'm so impressed with the engagement and support that Canada's agri-food and business sectors have shown for Protein Industries Canada and are showing. You know, when we started Protein Industries Canada, we thought that this would be primarily a play for Western Canadian businesses, but we're really pleased to learn that this has become a national opportunity, and we have reached and now members in every province in Canada. So about 300 or more members today in Protein Industries Canada in every province, as I mentioned, plus internationally. Our investments with members have also made strong progress on our co-investments. This past fiscal year, we co-invested into 13 projects and 3 capacity building projects, bringing us to a total of 22 projects by the end of March 2021. And as of today, we approach the end of the second quarter, we've already added an additional 15 projects. So you might see some updates on these projects not mentioned in last year's annual report. And all the projects are really making a difference, but regardless of when they were announced, they're important to the growth of our sector. As Bill mentioned, there are about 200 companies involved in these projects, and they bring many benefits in terms of higher protein content ingredients with improved functionalities you saw in many of the videos that you've been watching, a wider selection of healthy, nutritious products, and nutritious plant-based foods and beverages for consumers around the world to enjoy. Another part of our role that's very important is the development of our ecosystem, and together we're creating a stronger, more collaborative, innovative ecosystem that meets the needs of consumers, producers, processors, and food manufacturers alike, bringing all of this to Canada and Canadians. And we have a lot of growth on the horizon as we look forward, and Bill has already mentioned our roadmap to $25 billion in sales by 2035. We think that Canada can supply 10% of the world's plant-based products by 2035, which amounts to about, we estimate, $25 billion in annual sales. Now, this is not only good for our sector in Canada, it's great for all Canadians as we contribute to a growing Canadian economy. By focusing on Canada's plant-based foods, feed and ingredients ecosystem, we can increase the amount of healthy, nutritious food available to Canadians derived from a stronger food supply chain. And we know with COVID supply chain issues we've been through this past year and a half, how important getting involved in the supply chain really is and how we can make a difference there. We also see a lot of development around sustainability. We can make our sector more sustainable by contributing to clean technologies and processes that reduce carbon intensity, contribute to carbon neutrality, and use less water and energy. And we see that being a lot of the application in the products that we are supporting. Importantly, I think Protein Industries Canada has demonstrated that it can be part of the post-COVID recovery in Canada. We have been a resilient industry. We've demonstrated that through the COVID pandemic, and I'm confident that resilience will carry on as we work towards our $25 billion goal in 2035. Collaboration is really the key to this, and doing so, however, makes it important that we not only work together, but we work together to attract new capital, invest in our youth, further research and development, and ensure that we have the skilled workforce for our industry to succeed in the future. So at Protein Industries Canada, we're very committed to these ambitions. We're also continuing to work to provide new investments in technology and capacity building projects, whether it's through government funding, industry matching funds, or private investment. And we believe we will need all three of these working together to see our sector achieve its potential. We've had great progress to date, but the journey is just getting started. Our traditional industries were not built in 3 years or even 3 decades, and so it will take a while for our industry to develop, but we're really on a tremendously positive path. The reality is our ecosystem is still quite young, and we're still building the foundations, but again, we've made tremendous progress in the last few years in that regard. So we need to continue to grow our ecosystem, and if we are successful in receiving a second round of funding, that will be a major focus of our work. As I said, the mission is to get to $25 billion in sales, and I'm confident we can get there. Thanks to our members who've all participated in these projects and supported Protein Industries Canada this past year. Together we can achieve success in the sector, and I hope you'll continue to join us on the journey to $25 billion in sales. So my first function is to remind you that the notice of meeting was sent out on August 3rd via email. So our first order of business is to appoint a returning officer, and I'm happy to report that our Governance and Nominating Committee has appointed Scott Exner from MLT Aikens LLP as our returning officer. Scott is on the call and will be able to assist us if needed, and has reviewed the voting platform in advance and is confident that it will allow us to host this meeting according to our bylaws. Second thing I want to do is establish quorum, and we have quorum established. We need 10% of our voting members to be registered and logged in as to have quorum, and so we've achieved that. I declare that at least 22 members have logged in, and therefore a quorum has been established. Now, approval of the agenda. The agenda was sent in advance of your meeting package, and it can also be found on the platform. If you have any questions and would like to make a change to the agenda, please let me know by typing in the chat function that was explained in the video, and this is how we will entertain questions and comments throughout the meeting. If there are no questions, and I see no questions now, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda, and so please type in "I move" into the chat function, and I will take the first two names that type in "I move" as first and seconder for the vote. As a reminder, only those who are members of Protein Industries Canada and have voting rights in their organization may make or second a motion and vote. So I have the names On the screen now, Tyler Grunewald and Ray Bouchard have moved and seconded. Thank you very much, Tyler and Ray. I'll now move, so that motion be resolved that the agenda be approved. And as we wait for the voting, we'll have another video project update, and this comes from the New School Foods, one of our most recent announcements.
Hi, I'm Chris, the founder of New School Foods, and here we're creating a fillet of fish that is entirely plant-based, but that looks, cooks, tastes, and flakes just like real fish. We partner with leading academic and private laboratories who are each tackling different parts of this problem. Our team at Ryerson University has already made amazing progress at creating a cookable gel that transforms into an opaque solid with flaky, directionally aligned proteins. Meanwhile, we have other teams working on flavor and much, much more. We've already submitted a full patent application for a novel food scaffolding process, and we hope to have a full prototype early next year. Can't wait to tell you more soon.
Hi, I'm Faye, co-founder and CEO of Lyman. We make protein ingredients by fermentation of Canadian pulse starches. The PIC project enabled us to hire experts on team and open a new lab. Here, we're developing novel protein ingredients to enhance the texture and mouthfeel of plant-based foods. Working with New School Foods allow us to dive deep in the needs of plant-based food industry, helping us to craft the right ingredients.
Okay, and the motion is passed. Now we'll move on to the minutes for the 2020 Annual General Meeting. The minutes from our last Annual General Meeting from September of last year were also sent out in your package. If there are no errors or omissions from the minutes, I will ask for a motion to accept the minutes of Protein Industries Canada 2020 AGM as presented. And again, a reminder, make the motion I move into the chat function, and I will again accept the first two names as mover and seconder. Okay, I have Jason McNamee and Keith Jones moving and seconding. Thank you. I will now call for the vote. As the vote is underway, we'll share another project video with you. This one comes from Precision AI, and Dan McCann's company is doing some fantastic things in the use of drones for crop protection projects.
We're incredibly proud that we've managed to solve some very key challenges in artificial intelligence at broadacre scales. For Canadian farms, a lot of the solutions that are out there can't scale up to the size of the farm. Our artificial intelligence system can operate at the scale of a Canadian farm.
We've seen a number of benefits of working very closely with Precision.ai. Our team has benefited from the direct collaboration with the company. So our graduate students and our research associates have been able to see how a company AI team operates, and we've had very, very good technical discussions about a number of really interesting problems.
The things that have maybe surprised us a bit is the additional opportunities to leverage AI and the different technologies to do other things within agriculture and farming. And also on the other hand, the incredible demand and interest from consumers to understand how food is grown and how we can do it in a safer and more sustainable manner.
In the future, you're going to be able to see our project scale up to multiple drone surveying fields at the same time to go even faster, to be able to accomplish massive broadacre chemical reduction that can actually have a material impact on the Canadian plant protein industry.
Okay, we have the results in, and the motion is passed, so the minutes for the 2020 AGM for Protein Industries Canada are approved. The next item on our agenda is the audited financial statements, and for this portion of the agenda, I'll pass it over to my colleague Dave Didziak, who I've worked with from the beginning in Protein Industries Canada. So welcome, Dave. Over to you.
Thank you, Frank, and good morning. I'm joining here from Calgary, Alberta, which I would like to acknowledge as the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples of the Treaty 7 region and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all the First Peoples whose presence continues to enrich our community. On behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee and the entire Board of Directors, I'm pleased to present the audited financial statements for the 2021 fiscal year. I also have Cassandra Quayle available, our Chief Financial Officer, to answer any questions later if needed. The independent auditor's report and the audited financial statements were included in the annual report and were sent out as part of your package. The audited financial statements can be found in Appendix B of the annual report, which starts on page 47. The financial statements are for the 12-month period ending March 31, 2021, and were prepared in accordance with the Canadian Accounting Standards for non-for-profit organizations. The corporation entered into a funding agreement with ISID Canada for a 5-year period, which will end March 31, 2023, and we used the deferral method of accounting for contributions. Okay, statement of our financial highlights. So current assets include some $8.25 million ISID receivables of $7.2 million and project advance receivables of $2.84 million. Property, plant, and equipment and intangible assets are stated at cost less accumulated amortization. As of March 31, the company had accounts payable and accrued liabilities of $8.23 million, including project reimbursement payables of $7.76 million. During the year, the corporation received funding from ISID in the order of $45.854 million and recognized $41.336 million of revenue during the year. ISID funding of $11.6 million is reflected in deferred contributions on the statement of financial position. As of March 31 of this year, the company had net surplus of unrestricted assets of $432,900. And looking at a statement of operations and change in net assets, in addition to the ISID funding of $41.33 million recognized as revenue during the year, other sources of revenue included project management fees of $2.43 million and membership fees of $122,000. Looking at our expenses, during the year, the company reimbursed technology project costs of $37.86 million and incurred capacity program expenses of $956,000. Our salary and benefit expenditures were $2.4 million. It includes remuneration and benefits for 19 full-time staff members. And at the end of the previous fiscal year, PIC had 11 full-time staff members. Our office lease expenses are $119,000 and software expenses of $240,000 are included in office and administration. Protein Industries Canada had an excess of revenue over expenses of just over $1 million for the fiscal year and a net overall surplus of $432,000. That's my presentation for the 2021 audited financial statements. If there are any questions or comments on the statements as presented, you may go ahead and type them into the chat function now. And we're testing out that fiber optic line between Regina and here. I don't see any questions, so I will move on. There's no motion necessary for approval as the audited financial statements are approved by the Board of Directors and received by the membership. I'd now like to move on to the next item, which is the appointment of the auditor. The Audit and Finance Committee is recommending that we remain with KPMG. Can you please have a motion to appoint KPMG as the auditor of Protein Industries Canada for the 2021-2022 fiscal year?
Can he see that?
Can you see that?
Frank, I don't have it up on my side. Maybe you could see it
Yes,
and read the names.
we have a mover and seconder, Ray Bouchard and Havez Shitsi, I think is pronounced, Shitsi.
Okay, thanks, Frank.
You have a mover and seconder.
And so while the vote is underway, we will again have a project update video from an exciting company that's also based here in Calgary, known as Provisional Analytics.
Canadian agriculture has a global reputation earned through safety, sustainability, and quality. Data can drive this forward. Protein Industries Canada has brought together Skymatics, Verge, Coots Agro, and Provision Analytics to achieve just this. In our first year, we've developed fully configurable forms for digital data capture. They enable growers to achieve global food safety compliance while tracking seed, spray, harvest, and any other key processing data. We've also integrated systems to combine the food safety data with geospatial, weather, and equipment usage data. This interoperability gives us an unprecedented private data lake. We've developed machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms that put the data to work. The beta algorithms predict the carbon footprint and the water consumption of an operation. This combines with dashboards inside our software, which can track and improve core operating metrics. Through these advances with data, we'll not only validate the reputation of Canadian agriculture with fully traceable records, but we'll also identify the variables that drive performance, giving growers the operating insight to continuously improve their safety, sustainability, and quality, thereby furthering the reputation of Canadian agriculture.
Okay, thank you. The results of the vote are in and the motion is passed. So thank you for bearing with me through this report. And I'll now pass it over to Annette Rivette, Chair of our Governance and Nominating Committee, for her report. Annette?
Thank you, Dave, and good morning. I'm pleased to provide an update on behalf of the Governance and Nominating Committee. After the heavy lifting of last year's governance and nominating agenda to amend our bylaws, this year we focused on refining the board skills matrix and the director recruitment process. For 2020-21, we achieved the requirement of a gender parity board with 12 members and representation from BC through to Manitoba. While this was achieved at the start of our year, we did have one industry member, Allison Amater, resign, which means we have one industry member vacancy to elect at today's meeting. In addition to the election of one industry board member, we will also be asking for a motion to reappoint the 4 independent members of the board. You may recall from last year's meeting that when we updated the bylaws and articles, it was to align with the contribution agreement, which contemplates 2 classes of directors, industry and independent. According to the contribution agreement, we have a requirement of our board of directors to be made up of at least 1/3 independent directors and to achieve gender parity. In your meeting information, you will see that we have one name on the ballot for the industry position. This year, the board of directors, led by the Governance and Nominating Committee, took a proactive approach to board recruitment, with our chair, Frank Hart, and myself interviewing several interested members prior to the AGM. This was done to ensure that the vacant position was filled with the appropriate skill set as identified by the Board of Directors skills matrix. The skills that were determined to be sought this year was experience in food and ingredient processing and capital markets. We also considered national and international experience, as well as ensuring that we maintained gender parity and geographic representation outside of Saskatchewan and Alberta. As the work for Protein Industries Canada now extends beyond our borders, we felt it is important that our board understand the full scope and complexity of the global food sector. We believe that the independent and industry candidates recommended today will further strengthen Protein Industries Canada's board of directors, bringing a wealth of experience and skills to support the continued growth of Protein Industries Canada and our ecosystem. There will be 2 motions for the election of the board of directors. The 2 motions proposed meet the requirements of a board with 1/3 independent members, as well as for gender parity. The first motion I will ask for is that of the independent members. Independent members are defined as individuals who generally will not receive investment from PIC. This year's slate is Frank Hart, George Lafond, Mary Dawn Levy-Konkin, and myself, Annette Rivette. The slate for independent directors is recommended by the Board of Directors and presented to the membership annually for approval. The 4 proposed directors remain the same as last year. With that, I will call for the motion that it be resolved that the slate of independent members be appointed by the Board of Directors, Frank Hart, Annette Rivette, and George Lafond for a 1-year term, and Mary Dawn Levy-Konkin for a 2-year term. And again, I will take the first 2 names in the chat bar. Tyler has moved, as well as seconded by Afiz Shishti. So while the vote is taking place, it is my pleasure to introduce the next project update. This one comes from Emily Actua Project, and this was actually the first capacity building project that we announced at PIC.
Innovation and technology are now key components of the agriculture and agri-food industry. They've helped make Canada a global leader as we revolutionize how we produce, deliver, and dispose of our food. But there remains a significant problem threatening the industry's potential: the widening skills gap and labor shortage. To continue growing Canada's agriculture ecosystem, we must invest in building STEM and digital skills among youth.
ACTUA, the Enterprise Machine Intelligence and Learning Initiative, and Agriculture in the Classroom have come together to support Protein Industry Canada to grow and strengthen the digital agriculture ecosystem in Canada. Together, we're building the skills, awareness, and interest among youth in digital agriculture.
By working with an advisory panel of experts, we've enabled member organizations across the Prairie provinces to incorporate digital agriculture learning into their existing STEM programs. These programs build critical skills and connect youth to relevant career opportunities. They also promote diverse perspectives, especially those of Indigenous peoples who have a deep understanding of and connection to the land. For example, ACTUA's network member at the University of Manitoba is now teaching local youth how agricultural practices, technology, and coding go hand in hand to grow plants and food. And Agriculture in the Classroom is busy developing curriculum-linked presentations for grades 7 to 9 students to demonstrate what a digital agriculture career could look like in the near future. So far, we've engaged more than 31,000 youth in the prairies in STEM programming, including 6,500 youth in digital agriculture-related activities. We're only just getting started.
Over the coming months, we'll encourage even more youth to explore digital agriculture by providing them with experiential activities such as solving agricultural challenges with robotics and automation, collecting and analyzing moisture data, and germinating seeds while learning about the latest soil science. Stay tuned.
Thank you. I'm just waiting for the results to come up on the screen. That is passed. Thank you, everyone. We will now move on to the second motion, which is the election of the industry member. As noted, we have 1 vacant industry position. We issued a call for nominations in June, and that call closed on August 15th. We want to thank everyone that submitted their nomination and that Frank and I had the pleasure of meeting through this process. As recommended by the Governance and Nominations Committee, we present for election Catherine Bulmer to fill the industry member vacant position. Catherine is currently the Senior Director, Global Foods Research and Development at PepsiCo, and her bio is included in the meeting materials. Can I please have a mover and seconder for the following motion? Be it resolved that Catherine Matheson be elected to the Board of Directors for a 3-year term. Carl Potts has made the motion and Lori Dimitrition has seconded. I will now call for the vote, and while that's happening, we will showcase another video project. This one is from Lucent, which was actually our first completed technology project.
One of the things that we're most proud of this project is how we were able to scale up from a lab of where we're using a couple of grams of material to producing a ton of material a day, and how we really improved the industrial process where we were using 20,000 liters to produce a ton of product, it was taking us 10 hours to where now it's taken us under a minute to produce that same amount of product, and we're using 0 water.
Yeah, and I think it's been great to see, kind of the focus on the pulse byproducts and, all of these, milling byproducts that we have and how they're performing in the process. And, there's truly been process engineering innovation, in this project to take a look at, the available byproducts and, really not only have we improved the production system and giving us a really clear path to commercialization of these products, but the performance has actually been exceeding our expectation. And so, what I look forward to in the future of this project is seeing us get to quantities where we can actually get them in the hands of, farmers in our cropping system. But also, I'm really excited to kind of continue to see the results on things like, fruits and vegetables and greenhouse applications and vertical agriculture. And there's so many opportunities here. That's kind of what I'm really excited about in the future of this project. Yeah, that collaboration is certainly paying dividends, so pretty exciting times. So we look forward to the future of this project.
Yeah.
Thank you. That motion is passed, and I declare Catherine Matheson elected to Protein Industries Canada Board of Directors. Welcome, Catherine, and thank you to everyone who expressed an interest in serving on our board. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Frank.
Thank you, Annette, and welcome, Catherine. We'll be looking forward to having you join us on the board. This is one of the great honors and privileges you get to have as chair of the board, and that's to recognize some special contributions to Protein Industries Canada, and I want to really single out 3 people in my remarks this morning. First of all, I'd like to, on behalf of the entire board and staff at Protein Industries Canada, thank Alison Amateur for her time and commitment to Protein Industries Canada. Alison, if you know her, has a great passion for Canada's agri-food sector and a lot of first-hand knowledge in the growing of pulses, which was an important insight she brought to our board. Alison was a founding contributor to the whole pitch to convince the Canadian government to fund Protein Industries Canada, and she was very instrumental in working not only her contacts but particularly a number of people in Alberta, and she served on our board and was a great contributor in many ways, and brought that passion and drive to see the growth of the plant protein industries in Canada. So in recognition of Alison's commitment to the organization, we've made a donation to one of her great organizations that she's very passionate about, Alberta 4-H. So Alison, on behalf of all of us at the board and staff and the whole membership, thank you for your contribution to Protein Industries Canada and to the whole plant-based ecosystem in Canada, and I know in your case, Western Canada in particular. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge Dennis McKnight. Now, Dennis was never a formal board member of Protein Industries Canada, although at many times it felt like he was. He was an ardent supporter of Protein Industries Canada from the beginning, and I'd known Dennis a long time ago and sort of got reconnected to Dennis through his interest and passion Protein Industries Canada. Dennis was the inaugural CEO of Plant Protein Alliance of Alberta, and sadly Dennis lost his battle with cancer earlier this year. But he was always willing to help Protein Industries Canada in our early days, and more than once used his extensive Rolodex to help us meet the right people. In particular, Dennis was very instrumental in introducing to us a number of very important contacts in Europe that we continue to work with. And we'll always be appreciative of the work that Dennis did on our behalf and the work that he did to support the whole growth of the plant protein industry in Canada. So with that, I'd like to take a moment just to recognize Dennis's special contribution to the entire cause of plant proteins in Canada. Now, last year we introduced a special annual recognition of an honorary lifetime membership. And this award is given to a person whose talent, commitment, passion was critical to the success of Protein Industries Canada. And of course, there was no one more deserving last year than Dr. Wilf Keller, who received this award. And this year, I'm pleased to advise everyone that we are honoring this, giving this honorary lifetime membership to Dr. Bob Tyler. Now, Bob was critical in the early days of Protein Industries Canada. And while we weren't much more than a fledgling organization, and I think, I'm not sure if we'd even hired Bill Gruhl at that point, Bob was very instrumental in getting us started and acting initially as our chief interim technology officer. In this role, Bob contributed countless hours to designing the technology program, creating connections, and assisting in the development of our projects, particularly our early projects. And so today, much of the success we are seeing in our technology programs come from the foundations built by Dr. Tyler. In addition to his role as interim CEO, or CTO rather, he provided invaluable insights and counsel to Bill when Bill joined the organization, even beyond his formal tenure. Bob has always been someone that people would lean on as a voice of wisdom in the sector. Because beyond his work directly with Protein Industries Canada, Dr. Tyler's experience in food science was instrumental to many Canadian companies and their successes in this area. Over the years, Dr. Tyler, in his ever so patient, often self-deprecating way, provided research expertise and guidance to many businesses working to develop new ingredients and food from pulses. And in his role at the University of Saskatchewan, Bob mentored hundreds of students in this area, helping create the ecosystem we have today. So there are really so many reasons why Bob Tyler is worthy of this honor. And on behalf of the entire board of directors, I want to thank you, Bob, for your contribution to the establishment of Protein Industries Canada and your work in supporting the development of Canada's agri-food sector. And we have some other individuals who also want to say thank you as well, and we'll play that video now.
Hey, Dr. Tyler, congratulations on your honorary lifetime membership to Protein Industries Canada. You know, you and I met back in the early 90s in my undergraduate degree, and we've had a great opportunity to work together over the course of time. In my time administering the Agriculture Development Fund, working on the Strategic Research Program and the Livestock Forage Center of Excellence. But this today is really to celebrate your contributions to our organization. You agreed to come on as the interim Chief Technology Officer for us at PIC. You built out our application processes, our program evaluation processes, and you provide us such great advice on how we're going to make investments across create, grow, make, and sell. I really want to thank you for that, and more importantly, I want to thank you for the leadership, the mentorship, the advice, and the guidance you've provided to so many of our members over the last number of years. Thanks, Dr. Tyler, and welcome to an honorary lifetime membership at PIC.
I'm really happy to have this opportunity to congratulate you, Bob, on your lifetime membership to Protein Industries Canada. We've worked together for the past 5 years on the board and as the chair of AgWest Bio. You really helped create the vision that became PIC, and you've set both organizations on the path of future success. Bob, you've been at the helm of the plant protein industry for many years, and you brought the rest of us up from behind. From your early research to training countless students to serving on so many organizations, I am truly grateful for your dedication and passion to making the ag industry stronger in Canada. I hope you continue supporting us for many years.
Hi, I want to take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Tyler on receiving the honorary lifetime membership from Protein Industries Canada for his significant contributions to the Canadian plant protein and agri-food sector. Bob, your contributions to the sector have been many, and you continue to have a long-lasting impact on the sector. Your work on the development of value-added processing technologies, such as your research on pea fractionation, add value to the entire protein sector while also directly contributing to individual value-added businesses by increasing their efficiency and profitability. Thank you, Bob, for all the work that you have done on behalf of the ministry and the sector, and I want to congratulate you on receiving this very deserving honor today.
The legend that is Dr. Tyler. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyler. I'm so grateful to know you and be amongst one of your many admirers. When I first met you, you were over the moon passionate for Saskatchewan and Canadian pulses. I'd never even heard about them. Their enthusiasm was so contagious, my sister and I started an entire company around them. You're a visionary for Saskatchewan, Canada, and making the world a better place with Canadian crops. Your support, connections, and inspirational mentorship have contributed more than you will ever know. Congratulations on your honorary lifetime membership for all that you've done in Canada and around the world for plant protein and the agri-food ecosystem.
Well, it seems that there's little one can do to adequately thank a person like Dr. Tyler, who's given so much and asked for so little in return. And I really did enjoy thoroughly my working time with Bob when we established Protein Industries Canada. So, Dr. Tyler, with this honorary lifetime membership in Protein Industries Canada, we want to thank you and congratulate you on a tremendous contribution to the sector. So thanks, Bob. With that, I'll turn it back to Bill to provide his CEO report.
Thank you, Frank. As you've seen in many of the projects played so far, our consortia are making excellent progress and having profound impact on Canada's plant-based food, feed, and ingredient sector. The projects are contributing to the strength of Canada's ecosystem and positioning Canada as a leader in an increasingly competitive space. At Protein Industries Canada, we have long recognized that it will be the cumulative outcomes of these projects that will prove our progress and success as an innovation cluster. Our projects, now totaling 40, with more than $430 million invested, get closer to completion, the outcomes and impacts of the work and how collectively they are growing Canada's value-added processing sector are becoming more clear. So before I continue my formal update, we have another video to watch that highlights many of the project partners and how we're working with Protein Industries Canada, not only helping their businesses, but the sector as a whole.
I think there's amazing people in our industry, all through the agriculture industry, and they're willing. They want to see our industry grow and develop and adopt and change. We have agronomists that are working strongly with the farmers out in the field, helping them to meet the needs of the processors, and we're also communicating from the processors what the farmers really need in order to be successful on their end.
So a really good example of that kind of collaboration is our current Protein Industries Canada project, where we're working with tempered flours. So flours that have been altered by temperature and humidity. And we're looking at different applications for different types of pulse flours and oat flours.
When you're totally creating new products, that can be extremely exciting. And we don't stop just with products for clients. We're constantly working on new ideas.
That's what really motivated me, was how do we solve this sort of problem that we have in this particular food area. And so now we've been applying for programs like Protein Industries Canada and some other different kinds of grants for like hiring or offsetting research like SHRED. So it's only in the last couple of years we've really been starting to see this whole other realm of possibility for helping to get certain key parts of work done.
We had already been selling some of these flours commercially, made from navy beans, but we're discovering through this project that there are some other pulses and some oat flours that will work really well as well.
So business is growing now very rapidly. Even through COVID, we were quite busy, but now it's really beginning to pick up. I think especially in Alberta too, and across the prairies, I think we're just beginning to see the potential of value-added products with the great prairie crops that we have. And people are realizing that, the government's beginning to realize that. So that's really exciting.
As introduced in that prior video, we really feel our work at Protein Industries Canada is starting to have a noticeable impact on Canada's agri-food sector. We're making strong progress toward our goals, and our KPIs, as highlighted in our annual report, show that we're on the right track. You may recall that Protein Industries Canada committed to some very lofty goals as part of our establishment, including 4,500 jobs and $4.5 billion in GDP contribution over 10 years. Now, a preliminary evaluation completed by an independent firm shows that we are, in fact, on trend to surpass those goals. The initial analysis shows that 15 of our projects could contribute 6,200 indirect and direct jobs and contribute almost $9 billion to our GDP within 10 years. As of today, Protein Industry Canada funded projects are supporting 920 direct jobs, responsible for the creation of 166 unique pieces of intellectual property, supporting the development of 550 new products and services, and the vast majority of our projects support sustainable environmental production and processing practices. We're highly confident that our investment portfolio and capacity building work will lead to the outcomes we envisioned with a positive return on investment. As you may recall, the federal government committed an additional $20 million to Protein Industries Canada in the past spring budget, bringing the total investment to $173 million. Already, most of those funds have been committed, meaning that we are very, very close to having all of our available funds co-invested. Operationally, now our focus is turning towards project management and ensuring that projects advance and milestones achieve their intended outcomes. While we still have much work to do, I am very happy with what we've accomplished in 2 short years. I recall sometimes our first AGM where we have not announced a project and no investments have been made, and today we are basically fully committed. We have completed projects and products that are moving to commercialization, like Lucent from the previous videos, who is in partnership with AGT have created fertilizer delivery agents from the hulls of pulse crops. Just today, Lucent announced that their trials were successful and they're moving to commercialization at a new product line. That's just one exciting example. In the past year, both Roquette and Merit Functional Foods finished commissioning and officially opened their businesses, processing thousands of tons of Canadian crop. Ingredion has expanded their Canadian footprint with their acquisition of Verdient, and we announced 2 projects with international partners to create shelf-ready products with ingredients grown and processed here in Canada. These are the real and tangible benefits of the work that we are doing, and we've truly just begun the transition from commodity provider to ingredient and food supplier of choice. But really, it's only the beginning. Last year during my update, I talked about the concept of Transformation 2035 and the concept of Protein Industries Canada 2.0. That was well over a year ago that we, the board and the staff of Protein Industries Canada, started thinking about what was next. When we first asked the question, it was in relation to our organization, Protein Industries Canada, but we soon realized that was actually the wrong question to ask. The question we needed to ask was, what was next for our sector? And that led us to where we are today and the launch of the Road to 25 Billion, a roadmap for Canada's food, feed, and ingredient ecosystem. The roadmap is meant to be a guiding document for the continued growth of our sector. While we've accomplished a lot over the last few years, we recognize there is still much more to do, and that is much greater than Protein Industries Canada. The roadmap is meant to be the framework to help guide the greater ecosystem. We know that we don't have all the answers and that it will evolve as our sector does, but we felt building on the momentum and acting quickly was important. The demand for plant-based food is growing at an explosive rate. You will recall the Ernst & Young report we commissioned at the beginning of the year pegged the value at $250 billion in 2035, and many subsequent reports have put the number even higher. And sometimes I think the number actually doesn't matter. We know that it's big and larger than initially ever imagined. We also know that Canada has an opportunity to become a global leader, claiming upwards of $25 billion in sales by building on our strength as a producer of high-value and high-protein crops. And we know that many other countries have the same aspiration. And if we as a country want to cement our place as the preferred supplier of plant-based foods and ingredients by growing domestic and attracting companies, we need to have a plan. And that is what the roadmap is. The roadmap will help guide our sector on our journey and over the next decade to build a collaborative and unified effort as we work together to establish Canada as a world leader in the production of plant-based food, feed, and ingredients. And this roadmap is much bigger than Protein Industries Canada. Reaching $25 billion in sales is greater than any one organization. It will take the work of many, and it will take coordination, and it will take dedicated effort. That is why with the release of the roadmap, we're also excited to release an advisory committee of industry leaders from across Canada. These distinguished leaders will help guide the further development and implementation of the roadmap. They will help build connections and provide advice and insight as we continue the journey. They will help mobilize our ecosystem, inviting others to join us on the work to elevate Canada's agri-food system. When we're successful, the benefits will extend far beyond the organizations involved in the production of plant-based foods, feeds, and ingredients. Together, we'll be building the future of food. We'll generate billions for our economy and create thousands of jobs from coast to coast, but we will also be helping secure a brighter future for Canada. Investing in plant-based foods will help contribute to the goals around carbon neutrality, will strengthen our domestic value chain, protecting us from trade disruptions and possible food shortages of the future. And we will be contributing to the health of our people by putting Canadian-grown and processed foods on grocery store shelves. Even though we're quickly nearing the end of our initial mandate, I've never been more excited about the future. And while I'm very pleased with where we have come and what we have done in just over 2 years, I believe we're just getting started. More importantly, we need to keep going, and this is truly Canada's opportunity.
The future of food is healthy and sustainable. And the future of healthy, sustainable food is Canada. We have the land, the people, the know-how, and most importantly, the drive to meet the ever-growing demand for plant-based food with the help of our nation's farmers, researchers, and processors. So that by 2035, we can reach $25 billion in plant-based food sales, turning a very promising present into an even better future.
So I hope you're excited as I am about the future, and I hope you will join us on this journey. I need to take a minute to recognize the numerous people who've helped us get to this point. First, my board of directors for your support and encouragement and for the time and thought you put into developing the roadmap. I recognize that I've asked a lot of you, both as boards and individual members, over the past 12 months. You've made significant contributions to where we are today as an organization and given very selflessly of your time and expertise. And finally, I'd like to thank the staff of Protein Industries Canada. I've often said that we are nothing more than a collection of people that believes in a better future for the agri-food sector and who are focused on helping create and capture wealth for the benefit of all Canadians. That is our purpose, and that is why we work at Protein Industries Canada, and I couldn't be more proud to call each of you my colleague. Thank you, and with that, I'll turn it back to Frank.
Thank you, Bill. And it's really you who deserves, and your team who deserves a lot of this credit. I know you're always generous in giving the board credit, but really the work every day that Bill and the team do is outstanding. And I would say that, you know, as I reflect back on the first meeting I had with the other 4 superclusters in Canada, when we had all been notified that we were the winners and we were trying to figure out how we were going to make this program work. If I'd have reflected back then and said, you know, our goal was to get $1 of private sector research invested for every dollar we put in, and we're almost at 2 to 1 in our case now, or that we would see a scenario where we could actually point to close to $500 million invested in plant protein innovation in just a few years in Canada, most of that driven by the private sector, or that we had really a shot at $25 billion in sales in this sector and providing 10% of the product for the world. I would have thought that was a tremendous success if we could achieve it, and we've done it. And Bill, thank you for all your work and the work you and your team do, and thank you to all the members and companies in particular who invested in this sector and supported us all together in this journey to make Canada the world leader in plant proteins. So that ends the formal part of our agenda today. Thank you for joining us. Before we go on to the next part of our meeting, I'll take a a motion to adjourn, and I just need one person to move this motion to adjourn the annual general meeting of Protein Industries Canada. If I could get that motion now, please. I have the motion. Havez, thank you. So we are adjourned, and we will now move to our panel. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much for staying with us and getting through the business of the corporation. This is always the exciting part of the annual general meeting, where we get to talk about the work that we're doing. And I'm very excited for the next hour and a bit. I've had the pleasure to meet with all of our panelists and moderators as we prepared for today, and I was so impressed with their insight and expertise, and I'm sure you will be as well. And I'm so honored that they've agreed to share their time with us this morning and for their patience, because we are running a little bit behind. And for our panelists, I do have to acknowledge that Dr. Mariana Prica will be joining us from Australia, and it's about 2:30 in the morning for her, so I really appreciate her dedication to what we're doing today. For the first panel, Achieving Excellence, I'm delighted to have my counterpart from the Digital Supercluster, Sue Paish, agreed to be our moderator. I have Sue's formal biography in front of me, and I can tell you it's impressive, but I can also tell you that over the past 3 years or so, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know her. She is, in short, a remarkable person and someone I've personally learned a lot from over the past 3 years. With an honorary doctorate in technology from British Columbia Institute of Technology and a Vancouver Influential Women in Business Lifetime Achievement Award, Sue Paish is the Digital Technology Supercluster CEO. Prior to her CEO position, she was a managing partner of one of Canada's most respected law firms. Sue continues to seek innovation and inspiration for organizations to grow, transform, and succeed with her work in the digital community in Canada. With that, I will turn it over to Sue to get us started. Sue, over to you.
using half as many resources. And then they drove and encouraged all parts of the ag sector to collaborate, to work together in pursuit of that common goal. So today, Netherlands farmers have reduced dependence on water by 90%. Vegetables harvested in the Netherlands can be sold same day in New York. Might take a little longer to get to Saskatchewan or British Columbia or Australia. And the use of chemical pesticides has pretty much disappeared from many who are in the ag sector. Now, today we've got 3 truly amazing leaders to share with you their journeys, trials, and tribulations on their path to excellence, with a real focus on the importance of collaboration in telecom, in agriculture, in sustainable oil, and in sport. The way we're going to run this is you're going to hear from each panelist first as they introduce themselves and their organization, and then we'll dig into their secret sauce for driving excellence. the good, the bad, the ugly, and the stuff you haven't heard before. So let's start with Anne. Let's kick it off with you. And I just want to do a disclaimer that Anne is the CEO of Own the Podium, and I sit on her board. So but that's not going to affect the conversation. We're going to have a riveting conversation here. Anne, over to you first.
Well, thanks so much, Sue, and thanks, Bill, for the invitation to be part of this exciting panel. So as Sue mentioned, I'm the CEO of Own the Podium, and our organization's primary mandate is to help Canada's athletes and coaches win medals at the Olympic and Paralympic Games. In addition to that, we provide funding recommendations to the primary funding partners as to how they should invest their money to help Canadians win more medals. The most significant funding partner is the Government of Canada, and they invest about $73 million annually to help us help Canada's athletes and coaches win more medals. I was a high performance athlete myself, swimming in the sport of swimming for 10 years and curling for about 30 years. And I've also worked my entire professional career in sport management. I've been with OTP on the podium since 2009, first as their director of summer sport, and been in the CEO role since 2012. And prior to that, I was also the CEO of other national sport organizations. Again, a real privilege to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. I'm gonna come back to you in a minute to dig into some of the things you've just said. So, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. And it's a privilege to be here, and obviously the other folks on the panel are so accomplished. It's pretty cool to be a part of this. So a bit of my background. Chris Terrace, I work for TELUS Agriculture, and I've been in telecom 20 years and agriculture for 3 years, which is a little bit of a different take on things. If you're not familiar with TELUS Agriculture, it is a new line of business that TELUS, which is traditionally known as a telecom in Canada, has invested in. And we've been investing in agriculture for about 3 years. And we've really been focused on trying to build out a broad-based ecosystem of capability within the agriculture sector that links people right from what is sold from an input perspective to what's planted, to what's grown, to what the yield is, and then further downstream to CPGs. And we're really excited about, the assets that we put in place to build this broad-based connected capability within agriculture. And we're also very interested as an organization, we'll get into this as we go through some of the discussion on the panel, in collaborating with others in the industry to create a better outcome for consumers as well as for producers. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to hand it back, Sue.
Thanks, Chris. And we're going to have an interesting interplay between the common denominators between telecom, ag, high performance sport, and now let's go to sustainable oil extraction. Wes, let's hear a little bit about you, and then we'll kick off the conversation.
Yes, hello. Thanks, Sue. And my name is Wes Jickling, and I'm the Chief Executive of COSIA, which is an acronym that stands for Canada's Oil Sands Innovation Alliance. Maybe just before I introduce COSIA, just really congratulations to Protein Industries Canada. Those are, gigantic goals that you set out to achieve, and to hear the progress that you've made in towards those goals and exceeding those goals is really fantastic, and it must feel great. And just congratulations to everyone. A little bit about COSIA, and then I'll pass it back to Stu. COSIA is formed by or is owned by 7 oil sands companies headquartered in Alberta, 7 Canadian oil sands companies, and those 7 companies represent 90% of oil sands production. This is not your typical business association. There's lots of organizations and clubs where we get together and we talk about clean tech and best practices. This is really, I would say, extreme collaboration in the development of clean energy technologies. It was formed in 2012 by the CEOs of those oil sands companies, and there's a number of principles that underpin COSIA at its launch, but 2 of them I think are relevant here. One is the environment and the lowering or the reduction of the environmental footprint of the oil sands. It's too important to compete on. We should do that together. The second principle was, if we do this together, this journey of research and development, technology development, demonstration, and so on, if we go together, we can go faster, we can go further, we can get better results, better outcomes in terms of environmental performance if we take that journey together. I won't get into the details of how COSIA is structured, but maybe just to put a little bit of color or detail around this idea of, aggressive collaboration or extreme collaboration. COSIA really is a series of joint venture agreements. There's a joint venture agreement for greenhouse gas, a joint venture agreement for water, a joint venture agreement for tailings, and so on. And in each of those joint ventures, in some of those, there is mandatory sharing, which is to say those 7 competitors, if they are working on something, for example, with regard to water treatment or water recycling, they're required by law, really legally compelled by those joint venture agreements, to share that intellectual property, that technology, with their competitors also signing that agreement. So really the nub of it here is COSIA is a place where competitors share intellectual property, they share technology, they share their experts, they give access to one another's sites and their labs, they co-fund R&D, they co-fund technology development, they demonstrate and pilot technologies together. In the 9, almost 10 years that the organization has been up and running, there's been about 1,200 technologies developed together or shared. The cost of those, not the impact or the value, but the cost of those technologies shared and developed together is 1.8 billion. We've got about 230 active projects now. And I think the impact in the real world is about a 21% reduction in GHG intensity and significant increases or improvements in water efficiency. So anyway, I'll stop there. I think it's a good, I would argue, unique in the world model of collaboration for innovation, and happy to talk. I'm delighted to be here, and thanks for inviting us.
Thanks, Wes. You've introduced a new term to our vernacular: extreme collaboration. I don't think I've heard that term before, but there's all kinds of imagery that comes into my brain when I heard you say that. And while your industry, if you will, and Wes's are quite far apart in the sense that you're dealing with athletes and multiple sports organizations with a very public profile in a perhaps feel-good area of sports success, and Wes is in a deep industry that's had lots of commentary about it in the social as well as the business context. I think extreme collaboration might be a term that you're going to adopt as well. And so, can you share with us a little bit about your approaches to collaboration, and maybe paint a little bit of a picture about who you connect with, how you connect with, and maybe if I can ask you also to share a little bit about how the last 18 months, how the pandemic has impacted your approach to collaboration. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. Yeah, for sure. As an organization, we partner with 70 plus national sport organizations, and they have a choice as to whether they want to collaborate with us or not. So it's not mandated. It's very much a responsibility for our organization to earn their trust and respect. And when we do that, then we're able to have a greater impact on their ability to help athletes and coaches climb the podium. A key part of our approach has been, it doesn't really matter who gets the credit for things. So our goal at the end of the day is to get more athletes on the podium. And so if that means that we take a more humble approach to developing partnerships, then we do that. It's all about how do we help athletes and coaches. And I think, it's fair to say we've really worked hard on our partnership building, on our collaboration, on earning the trust and respect of all the different partners. And we're probably at an all-time high right now. And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that. With every crisis comes opportunity, and we were really able to, as an organization, capitalize on that. We assumed some leadership with the support of the partners that in areas that we had never played in before. Examples where we led the return to training strategy for sport in Canada, the return to competition strategy, the point of care testing, how vaccinations would be distributed to Team Tokyo and Team Beijing, many things that were somewhat out of our mandate. And we did that because there was a void of leadership within the community. But we didn't do it alone. We very much did it together. And I would say that our approach to collaboration was also a much more robust one, where we were more inclusive, we communicated more, we shared information, there were no secrets. The virtual platform gave us an opportunity to engage more frequently than we might have otherwise done in our face-to-face interactions. And we brought partners together to help identify solutions. And so by engaging them in that, they owned some of those solutions. So they really became very involved and committed and passionate about what we were trying to do to help Canada's athletes and coaches.
So when you say you engaged more and you brought them in, paint that picture for us in terms of how do you get a sport organization or the Canadian Olympic Committee or the Canadian Paralympic Committee they're slaying dragons every day in terms of what's going on with the pandemic. Athletes can't train. Who knows whether there's going to be Olympics or not. And On the Podium calls up and says, hey, want to get on a call? Unpack that a little bit for us. How do you actually do that? Because they got a million things on their list, and you might not be at the top for a conversation on something that might feel a little bit more about your interests and their interests. And I'm gonna pull in Chris and Wes into this as well. And go ahead first.
Yeah, we created a Return to Sport Task Force, which had representatives from national sport organizations, winter and summer, all levels of government, the Canadian Olympic Committee, Canadian Paralympic Committee, every possible stakeholder that needed to be involved in helping Canada's athletes and coaches get back to training and back to competition. And so through that dialogue, first of all, we met weekly during the pandemic, and that lasted for 6-7 months. And then we started to go bi-weekly. Now we're meeting monthly, but we've also just tweaked it a little bit now, and we're focusing on Beijing. So we're back to weekly meetings with all the winter sport leaders and our key partners to say, what are your challenges? What are your obstacles? And then it's about how can we help? And the help part was all of us coming together to say, okay, well, the Canadian Olympic Committee can go and speak to this person about this issue, and OT On the Podium can do something, and the Government of Canada can do something. So it was all about us coming together and identifying solutions. There was nothing in the too hard pile. We just didn't accept we couldn't do something. We needed to find a way to help athletes and coaches. So it was this relentless commitment to help, relentless commitment to find a way for athletes and coaches to get back to what their jobs were, what they were focused on, and that was preparing for Tokyo.
So Chris, go ahead, Wes. No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to jump in and maybe just pick up on something there. You asked about what's kind of happened during the pandemic. And here, of course, I think like everyone in industry, in any industry, there was a budget crunch and prioritizing or a high grading of everything you were doing. But I think the silver lining, which was I guess looking back, it should have been obvious, but it was actually quite a benefit to the working groups and the tables, I guess, where all of this collaboration happens, where the subject matter experts get together on a very particular specific topic and compare notes and come up with solutions. Before the pandemic, it was always, everybody would get together in COSIA's office, and a few folks from Fort McMurray or Cold Lake would dial in, and they were always at a disadvantage. And so I think in the virtual setting, everybody's on an equal footing. And I think, I don't think, it's been a much, much richer conversation at our working group tables, just because instead of 15 people, now we'll have 45, water treatment experts from all over the oil sands region and beyond. So it's actually been quite a benefit actually to the quality of collaboration. Maybe just to go back, and you had also asked about approaches to collaboration. I think, irrespective of COVID or a global pandemic. I think for us to maybe oversimplify it, you really start with the tough questions that are shared by a few companies. It doesn't have to be all of the companies, but definitely by a few of the owners, a few of the members. And there's layers to this. I think probably the best examples of collaboration where it's really been game changing and moved the needle on things, it's been when there's sort of an imminent challenge or a new regulatory requirement or a new performance objective. And, whether that's caribou, species at risk act, tailings, and the new one, which is net zero by 2050 for industry. Those are huge unifying questions and challenges that really kind of drive collaboration at our tables. But it doesn't have to be at that level. There are other layers and kind of down to the incremental where you get specific questions like, hey, is there a way we can capture waste heat and recycle that into our plants? Yes, there is, and we're piloting one, or there's one in use at an Imperial mine. Are there ways that we can improve our subsurface tubing where we inject steam down underground? Is there a way we can maybe insulate them differently or put grooves inside? Like there's all kinds of little questions that when you come together, you find that people share similar challenges, and that's really the basis for that comparing of notes, that brainstorming of ideas, and that really outreach, not only within the internal, the 7 competitors, but beyond, out into the ecosystem to see if there aren't solutions out there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Wes. And the whole idea that while many things during the pandemic have been unhappy or not pleasant, let's say the democratization, if you will, of the flat screen in terms of accessing conversations, like you said, is maybe one thing that is that has been helpful, because we don't have to get in our cars and drive or get on planes. We can dial in, even if you're in Australia, it's 2:30 in the morning, you can still dial in and have equal say on a panel or in a conversation, and keeping that idea in place even once we get back to in person will be an important thing. Now, one thing that you mentioned, Wes, both in your opening and in the comments just now, is this idea that people might not necessarily come to the table with a sharing mindset. There might be a little bit of, there's some collaboration around the table, but there might also be a little bit of competition. And there are a few industries more known for competition in this country than the telecom industry. I'm not sure if it's a happy family all the time in terms of collaboration, but Chris, you're at the table. And can you share with us some of the approaches that are taken in the telecom and in your area in terms of the ag part of telecom, in an environment where, at least from the audience's perspective, there doesn't feel like there's a lot of collaborative heart and soul between members of that industry? How do you make it work?
Well, it is a competitive industry, as I think everyone could probably agree to. But I think there's a lot of things that we might take for granted from that standpoint. So, I carry a TELUS cell phone, by way of example. Could you imagine if I couldn't call someone on the Bell network or on the Rogers network? You've got to have a degree of network interoperability and standards, and the opportunity to transit calls back and forth, both globally and through, one mobile carrier from another. Or can you imagine if, a Samsung phone didn't work on a certain network, or the same network as an Apple phone, as an example? So there are all these inherent co-opetition type opportunities that exist in telecom. The same thing that we're seeing is there's been this massive, and it's really interesting to hear sort of the COVID experiences everyone's going through. I think COVID has accelerated the way in which we collaborate through the adoption of technology curves. I mean, how many of us were on Zoom calls or, using, Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or things like that? At TELUS, as an example, just in the telco space, we're very happy for customers to use those technologies, although they may impact other parts of our business. So we partner with Microsoft and Google, and we compete with them in some ways as well. But what's the key thing that we're trying to drive to? It's an outcome, and that's the best experience for customers, right? Whether they're a TELUS customer or otherwise. And I think being outcome driven is really important when we think about collaboration. So we have a heritage within telco that is very much around working together to cooperate to create a customer outcome, and understanding that we're not going to have network coverage everywhere, and we're not going to have every solution every customer's looking for. And I think when I think about that, we've kind of brought that over to agriculture as well, from a tele standpoint. Like, we will not have every solution on every acre for a farmer or for a rancher. So we know that we're going to have to partner with others in an open architecture type of framework, which I think is based on what we know from a telco standpoint, to plug in equipment data or to plug in perhaps weather data if they've got a solution that they need, and so on and so forth. So having that open mindset and trying to create the best outcome from a customer is really key. And I think we have a neat application of that. I'll just take a second and talk about it if I could. We're working with the NGen manufacturing supercluster on the implementation of an insect protein manufacturing facility in London, Ontario. So, like, we're working with a great company, Aspire Foods. They're doing fantastic work in terms of growing out human-grade consumption insect protein. And they're building, what is an absolutely amazing facility with respect to being able to control environment and manage the most efficient outcome in terms of creating crickets for protein. So in doing that, they need automation, they need AI, they need sensor technology, and they need networking technology. And that, if you kind of bring all that together, those are really all the types of companies that are involved in building out that facility under Aspire's guidance. So I think that's a great example of creating an outcome. So we've got this next generation protein manufacturing facility in Canada where we brought multiple companies together to drive that outcome across AI, across networking, across automation and sensor technology. And it creates a capability that, from a tele standpoint, we're not going to go build our own insect manufacturing facility, but we have technology there now that we've built out in conjunction with other companies that we can take and apply somewhere else. And I think the application of collaboration that creates an outcome that we're all excited about, and at the same time creates technology that we can apply elsewhere, I think that's a real interesting outcome. And that, for me, is based on our telecom heritage, and it's how we're applying it as we kind of come into the agriculture space and think about partnering with others.
Thanks, Chris. That's a really interesting perspective. And yes, I squirmed a little bit when I first heard about that project of cricket protein, and that's all part of innovation, sort of going where others dare to tread. And both Wes, you and Chris, you and Wes have both talked a lot about the common goal, the customer outcome, if you will, and you've got interesting customers. And I wonder if you can. You also said don't put anything in the too hard pile. And get everybody to buy into helping with this outcome. Can you share a little bit with us from your perspective, where you've got these very disparate organizations and you don't have anything but goodwill, really pulling them all together in many ways? How do you define the common goal, the customer outcome, if you will, in the Chris and Wes context? And what are some of the barriers that you've encountered?
Sure. Well, the common goal is to collectively help athletes and coaches prepare to the highest degree possible and ultimately win medals at the games. And there are so many different stakeholders involved in that. I think when we look back to the pandemic, there are so many good examples of where we were able to do that. Let me give you just one example. In the middle of the pandemic, all Canadians will remember if we came back to Canada, we had to quarantine for 14 days. So we had two of the best women's beach volleyball teams on the planet who were coming back to Toronto and, given the current rules, had to quarantine in their homes for 14 days. That's 14 days of not being able to train. So with the collaboration of the Municipal Health Authority, the Provincial Health Authority, one of the Canadian Sport Institutes in Toronto, the Volleyball Canada, we created a beach court at the University of Toronto, a beach court for these athletes, a beach volleyball court for these athletes to be able to come and be in quarantine, but be able to go to this private beach volleyball court and train. So, the common goal there was to find a way for our 4 best women beach volleyball players to be able to not detrain when they came back from competing in one of the tournaments. So your more specific question, Sue, is around what are some of the obstacles or the barriers that we've encountered. I don't think it's rocket science. I mean, being able to earn the respect and trust of the people who are involved in the decision making is critical. Sometimes that takes time, but it's one that you just can't give up on. An unwillingness to share information. I mean, you already talked about the competitive mindset, the notion that if I work with you, then you might get ahead of me and you might get more, granting support than what another organization might get. For a national sport organization, it means that they might get greater funding from the government of Canada if they collaborate with another sport. So just that, competitiveness, and believe me, in high performance sport, by its very nature, it's pretty competitive. So there's a lot of that. Another obstacle that I've certainly witnessed is the differing levels of passion and commitment. So when you bring sport leaders together, they are, again, very driven to achieve the goal. And sometimes we run into different partners who may not necessarily share that same level of passion and commitment. So that can be a frustration to effective collaboration. But again, certainly what we've experienced is you just keep pushing that boulder and achieving some early successes, some early wins, finding a way for them to own this and to care about it. What do they care about? What's important to them? So that's all about earning trust and respect.
Thanks, Anne. Time flies when we're having fun, and I've just got a little bit of a warning here that we've got probably about 6 or 7 minutes to go. But before I ask you guys to give some final comments, you mentioned something there, Anne, about people might have sort of different perspectives on how much they want to really jump into the collaboration pool. And Wes, you mentioned in your opening that your organization was born of the brain trust of CEOs, and CEOs can come up with some pretty interesting, sometimes harebrained ideas, and then expect a whole army of other people to buy into the idea. But sometimes the people at the table feel quite distant from the goal, and there might be a goal from a CEO or an executive around collaboration, but the folks on the front line aren't quite there yet. Have you ever run into that and I'm picking up on what you said there. Have you ever run into that? How do you handle that? How do we help folks at the front line get as enthusiastic about collaboration when it can be hard work?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll try and answer. That's a huge question, and I'll try and give you some background here. I think, yeah, sure. I think it's a feature or a characteristic of any huge corporation where the folks on the front line, so to speak, and there's multiple layers between those folks and CEOs. And so, if you have a CEO come out publicly, or a group of CEOs in the case of the oil sands, and say, we are going to work together and we are going to supersize our collaboration to get to net zero by 2050. So if they say that yesterday, when you get the GHG working group together today at COSIA, it's not like everybody's got a new 30-year R&D plan and all kinds of money flowing and license to go out and do this. It takes dedicated and committed effort to get that internal alignment. And I know the oil sands companies spend and exert a tremendous amount of effort and time and resources to get that alignment. It is not easy, and it takes commitment and drive really from the top to do that. And I think there's a few reasons for that those alignment causes of that symptom of lack of alignment sometimes. And it's about capacity. People are already working 100 or 120% on their own stuff, and now there's a new public commitment from their CEO. What from my 120% work agenda falls off so that I can do that, right? That's going to take time to filter down through layers of management. What am I allowed to collaborate on? Which of the technologies here am I allowed to collaborate on? versus which ones do we want to compete with our competitors on? And I think people's incentives, right? People probably are incented for different reasons, and I think that needs to be connected to overall vision as well. Look, I'll stop there. I know we're tight on time.
Thanks, Wes, and thanks all of you for a rich conversation. I'm gonna wind it up by asking, Chris, I'll go to you first, asking each of you, for the benefit of our audience, what are the one or two, not 10 things that you'd like them to remember about collaboration in the context of achieving that big, hairy, audacious goal that they might have?
I think for me, it's probably what I spoke about earlier, and that's having a shared outcome, right? A shared outcome, particularly from a customer perspective, is key. And if you can line up on that, you can figure out, I think, how people can contribute to the outcome. And then the second part of that is, I think when we don't collaborate, we kind of hold on to things is because we think there's a benefit to us to doing so. And I do believe that if we collaborate, you got a broader pie for everyone to get a slice of over time. And I think that's an important component to think about as well, from my standpoint.
Thanks, Chris. Wes, how about you? What are the takeaways?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think I've kind of been in both sides of, or different parts of the innovation ecosystem, and heavy industrial or industrial innovation of the kind that fundamental science innovation that the Protein Industries Canada is working on, as are the oil sands. I've seen different sectors. It takes a lot of time. And as the end users, as these big companies, as the end users or the customers of some of this technology, it takes a ton of time to coach and iterate and provide feedback to those technology developers. This isn't something like an app that can iterate quickly and in a couple of weeks you can. This takes a tremendous amount of time, and so I think don't underestimate the value to the innovators or to the team leading a technology of time from subject matter experts in the end user companies, and I think that often is undervalued. And maybe the second one, and I was going to mention this previously, but I'll just say it now. As we evaluate anyway, and I think it's the same in a number of industries, I call it the enablement versus the technology enablement versus technology evaluation. A lot of technologies get pitched probably to the Protein Industries Canada, and the oil sands and telecoms. And I think the knee jerk is, well, let's do a techno-economic evaluation. Oh, it doesn't meet our internal hurdle rates, move on. Let's send them packing, send that integrator packing. I feel like, again, this is the point about needing more time, is to get into, okay, those technologies didn't meet our initial internal hurdle rates for internal rate of return or net present value, whatever. Which are the most promising? Let's spend that time with them before we send them packing. There's a function here of enablement. It's not just about evaluation. And I'm getting down into the weeds. And look, just thanks a lot for having me here, and it's been fun.
Thanks, Wes, and bring us home here.
Thanks. Well, just one comment. Achieving excellence is a team sport. Think of the impact that we can have when we work as a team as opposed to individually. And that's what we do every day, and that's what so many of us have talked about. So achieving excellence is a team sport.
So thank you, everyone. Sort of five big takeaways that I heard throughout the conversation. Let's make sure we have that common goal. Let's keep focused on the customer, whoever that customer might be. Keep focused on the customer rather than our own interests. Easy to say, hard to do. Keep an open mindset, especially if you're the one leading, quote unquote, leading the collaboration. You don't necessarily always own right, and keep an open mindset. A relentless commitment to help. I like that term, and one I'm probably going to use in the back of my mind at least. And then Churchill was invoked in this conversation with the comment, "Never ever give up." Collaboration's a team sport, and there's an old African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's the overriding common thread here. So Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Frank, for allowing us to have this panel. I'm going to echo the thanks earlier from Wes for bringing this panel together, and congratulations on the work that Proteins Industry Canada has done. I remember back in the early days of Supercluster being on phone calls Friday night, Saturday, Sunday with Frank on the phone as we were trying to figure out how these things were all going to come together, and that relentless commitment to work on a common goal, to get this crazy idea of collaborative innovation and co-investment between government and industry and academia. It for an old lady like me, it's the reason I'm here, because I think this public policy is going to work, and it's going to build a better Canada for our kids and our grandkids and all of their friends. So thank you very much. Congratulations, all of you, and have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Hello, I'm Jim Millington of Canada Protein Ingredients Protique de Canada, and I'm here in this field of soybeans to tell you about an exciting project that we are working on. The Canadian soybean supply chain is the best in the world, and together with our consortium partners, we are bringing high-quality, clean-label Canadian soy protein to the world stage.
The future of food is healthy and sustainable. And the future of healthy, sustainable food is Canada. We have the land, the people, the know-how, and most importantly, the drive to meet the ever-growing demand for plant-based food with the help of our nation's farmers, researchers, and processors. So that by 2035, we can reach $25 billion in plant-based food sales, turning a very promising present into an even better future.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Wes, Ann, and Chris, for that insightful dialogue. And Sue, congratulations on the work you're doing with the Digital Supercluster in British Columbia. Your work is really outstanding there. And I do remember all those late-night meetings trying to figure out how to do this. You know, the theme of the last panel was collaboration, and you know, I think what we experienced, Bill, in the early days of our journey was, you know, this was a bit of a foreign concept for companies to come together and share their intellectual property to build, a new intellectual property together. But now I think we've seen with a lot of our collaborations, the industry has really turned the corner on collaboration. So this is exciting to see this public policy experiment of Supercluster's work, as Sue mentioned. And Sue's been a great friend of Protein Industries Canada, provide us with a lot of help along the way, and she's done a fantastic job with the BC Digital Supercluster. It's now my pleasure to introduce another great friend of Protein Industries Canada, Leslie Ewing. I've had the good fortune to talk to Leslie on a number of occasions, and I'm always impressed with her knowledge and particularly her passion for the plant-based food sector in Canada. With over 20 years of management experience and business acumen, Leslie is Executive Director of Plant-Based Foods of Canada, doing amazing work helping companies get their plans together for this sector. She's president and co-founder of Camelot Business Development and has worked as program director at Food and Consumer Products of Canada. And Leslie advocates choice for consumers who want to include plant-based options in their diets, and has been a tremendous ally of our work and the journey we share together in terms of plant-based foods of Canada objectives. So I have no doubt we're in for a very lively conversation with this panel. And with that, I turn it over to you, Leslie.
to our panelists. And I do have to say, just as Bill said, Mariana, calling in from Australia, we can't thank you enough for speaking with us in the middle of the night from where you are. The last panel talking about mobilizing a diverse ecosystem towards a common goal. And, you know, what Chris said really stuck with me about the focus on a positive and shared customer outcome, whoever that customer is. And I think that's part of the reason why we are here today. So, this particular panel is going to talk about the road to 25 billion for Canada's plant-based food, feed, and ingredient sector. But before we dive in, I'd like to have each of the panelists introduce themselves. So Mariana, if you'd like to start.
Good morning from Sydney. Yes, it is early, but I've had my coffee heat, so I think I'm awake. I'm really delighted to be here. So I'm Mariana Preker. I'm the Managing Director of an organisation called Food Innovation Australia Limited. We are a national organisation that represents the 180,000 businesses that operate across Australia in the food and agribusiness sector. Thank you.
Great. Murad?
Thank you, Leslie. I'm Murad Al-Khatib. I'm president and CEO of AGT Food and Ingredients, and I'm a board member of PIC as well.
Great. And then lastly, Bill Grewal.
People probably know me because I've been on the AGM here all day. I'm Bill Grewal. I'm CEO at Protein Industries Canada.
Great, thanks. So we've talked about the fact that this 25 billion is actually a once in a generation opportunity for Canada, and that gets thrown around a lot, even prior to the context of the roadmap to 25 billion. Whenever we take a look at what's happening in the plant-based food area, this whole movement is phenomenal, what's happening. And the 25 billion is, as been discussed previously, is if we can provide ingredients for 10% of the global shift in food systems towards plant-based foods. There's no question this is a lofty goal by any standards, but the movement is being driven by large issues, such as the recovery from COVID-19. And I go back to what Anne just said in the previous panel about with every crisis comes opportunity. Population growth, mass urbanization, climate change, human health and nutrition, and income inequality. And what was once a very niche segment is now very mainstream and is being discussed globally on the world stage as central to feeding the global population by 2050. If you just reference the UN Food Systems Summit that's happening in New York right now, this is being raised as an issue. Canada is uniquely positioned to address some of the world's greatest challenges. And if I think about the three buckets that we're going to talk about as part of this panel, how can we mobilize toward the common goal? How a unified vision will help us get there? And how can we move forward to make sure Canada captures this opportunity? So Rihanna, I want to start with you. So Food Innovation Australia has a similar mandate to what we're talking about here today, to grow the share of your country's food in a global marketplace. So can you talk to us a bit about how your organization came about?
Yes, thank you, Leslie. So we were established in 2013 as an instrument of government to the federal government to address the market failure in our sector. And the part of the focus was to really drive the productivity and the competitiveness of the industry so we can become more smart and export focused. We're industry-led, we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we work with industry, research and government to drive this growth. Now, just to put into context, Australia's population is 25 million, but what we grow and produce or manufacture can feed up to about 4 to 5 times our population. So there's only so much Australians can eat in the coming 10 years. So we know that this has to go overseas, and that's why over 80% of what we produce, grow or manufacture is exported.
Thank you. So, if we think about Canada and Australia are not the only countries that are looking at the opportunity of plant-based foods. PIC and collaborations have been established to execute on innovative projects and are intended to advance the sector itself. But we're talking about claiming a much larger portion, 25 billion of the plant-based foods market, and time is of the essence. So, Murad, if I turn to you, AGT Foods has phenomenal reach. You're operating in many countries. So what does Canada's competition look like in this space?
Well, Leslie, I think that, as Mariana has also mentioned, producing nations that are abundantly blessed with land, beyond the productive, capacity of their populations to consume, are looking at this opportunity. And so, we do see, Canada, Australia, we see, the growing lands in the former Soviet Union, Russia, Kazakhstan, and others providing, great opportunity for, plant-based crop production. And then industries we're going to see developing, within Central Europe, places like Turkey, Australia, Canada, the US. So those are kind of, some of the main areas. But then we're seeing, again, the strong development of the processing sector in markets like China, whereby, here we are talking a lot about protein. Of course, on the Chinese side, they're very much more concerned with the starch, and the protein is a very good byproduct for them that they're now selling into world markets around the world. But I think that, when I look at the Canadian opportunity, we see there being quite a advantage, and that really is the abundance of arable land and fresh water. And then the predictability of our climate. Now, here we are sitting, in a year where we're looking at a drought of maybe 4 decades, but that's a drought of every 4 decades. We have an advantage, over, let's say, other areas of the world, including Australia, where I have, 4 factories myself, in 3 different states. We have a productive capacity here that's much more predictable. The supply chain in plant-based on a 3-crop rotation in Western Canada with pulses, cereals, and canola, is a major opportunity for our country. And, when we look at that and we use the term generational and we use the term like 25 billion, as a capture, target, this is not a pipe dream. It's an opportunity that is going to be, realistically within our grasp because of the convergence of multiple, trends that you talked about: population, income growth. The global demand for protein is rising. Health and nutrition consciousness is rising, and the new consumers' focus on sustainability is not something that will go away. So, plant-based foods and plant-based crops have a compelling place in satisfying the global demand as we see the shift in incomes and the shift in growth in population.
Great, thanks, Murad. So, Bill, if I turn to you now, so understanding the path that Food Innovation Australia took and the competitive landscape that Murad just mentioned, how do we start this journey in Canada?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. And I think it's 3 things. One is a plan, and I think we've got the start of that with the launch of the roadmap today, the Road to 25 Billion. I said in my comments in the annual general meeting, I don't think we have all the answers, but I think directionally we're going in the right area with the 3 themes that we've identified. I think the second piece is investment. And, we talk a lot about the need for collaboration and the need to work together, but we also need investment. And I'm not just talking about investment from the Government of Canada in an organization like ours, although that is critical and important. There needs to be investment from the private sector. And I think if you look at what Murad just talked about the trends and the endowment that we have in the crops that we produce, there is a good case for investment. But I think the third and most important piece is action. In Canada, we're a bit guilty of, especially in the agri-food sector, of writing reports and talking about what needs to get done and getting together as a sector and talking about what should be done. We know what needs to be done in terms of growing the value-added and processing sector. And so to me, it's really about mobilizing the actions that we've laid out in the roadmap to 25 billion, and really as a country coming together to execute on that.
Leslie, if I just could add one more point as well. I think that we have to recognize the opportunity is big enough that it's not a Canada or no one else scenario. I think that, as we look at being a global company, AGT, I mean, we are, looking right now, as Mariana is talking about their opportunity at, scaling our Canadian platform, our US platform, and our Australian platform. And, there will be unique advantages for each one of these jurisdictions. I mean, for instance, when we look at Australia, we're very excited about, lupins. We're very excited about broad beans. We're very excited about mung beans, which are not crops that we're growing in the Western Canadian system. So, there again is a variability and a desire of the consumer for variety, where this isn't going to be a pea story or a lentil story only. It's going to be a multiple crop, multiple opportunity, and different geographies give us different freight lanes, and Asia is going to be a major focus, of this. So I want to make sure that we all understand that Canada's place is a leadership role. Canada's place is to take our big share, but there's going to be way more share that we can fulfill on our own, which will then lead to global collaborations, Leslie.
Yeah, all you need to do is head over to Europe and see some of the companies over there and the variety of inputs that are happening. And we just finished research that said that one of the main reasons why consumers are picking up these products is because they're looking for options and variety. So to your point, there's room for a lot here. You take a look at some of the projected numbers for the size of the industry in the future, and to Bill's point, it doesn't really matter what the number is, it's huge. And there's room for everybody. So thank you for that. So I want to move to Mariana, how you brought everybody together, because you talked about the fact that Fial came out of sort of a failed attempt in Australia, and this was bringing everyone together to advance a common goal. Wes, in the previous panel, talked about the fact that people may not come to the table with a sharing mindset, rather a competitive mindset. So how important was the private-public buy-in and participation in advancing the goal or the mandate that you have?
It's absolutely essential, and I think to touch on Bill's point, in Australia, a lot of people were talking about the fact that the food and agribusiness sector, we didn't actually have an innovation system, and so this partnership was essential to address some of the market failures. And I'll touch on some of those market failures. Our sector is made up of lots of small companies. Of the employing companies, which is 60,000 of those, 98% of those are SMEs. So you can imagine that those SMEs don't have the economies of scales around knowledge, around capabilities and other associated resources to enter, let alone some domestic markets, let alone, overseas. A lot of the large companies, we don't have many large companies in Australia, but the ones that are, most of them are foreign owned, and you can appreciate the investments are directed through headquarters overseas, and it's not necessarily for the best interests of Australia and the country. There is a big disconnect between the research community and businesses, and as a consequence, the researchers aren't always working on the right technical challenges of businesses, and businesses aren't necessarily getting access to the right solutions for some of their challenges that could open up some real market opportunities. Being the sixth largest country in the world based on landmass, you could appreciate the tyranny of distance. You have a similar sort of challenge in Canada, and as a consequence, there are a lot of inefficiencies in our value and supply chains, and that fragmentation does cause us grief because you don't have the economies of scale to get product from A to B and make it economical to actually compete. And finally, the biggest challenge across our country is that we're a federation. We have states and territories. Each of those have their own governments, and we're not encouraged to collaborate. In fact, we're incentivized to do the absolute opposite. And as a result, because we don't collaborate, we don't have the scale and the capacity to really compete on a global stage. So that really inhibits us. So without the partnership between government and industry, we cannot address the barriers to scale and the market failures. And I think as a result, we've seen some tremendous partnerships that have resulted. We've just submitted a $600 million Australian dollar bid to form around clusters, effectively form a super cluster, and to create what we call a food and beverage manufacturing innovation ecosystem across the country, which currently doesn't exist. So, but that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't have been for the relationships that we had developed with the local clusters in the regions and cities across Australia. Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Miana. So, you know, I think it sounds the premise for what you've been able to achieve in Australia and how you've gone about it is very similar from what I understand, and Murad and Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong, from the approach of Protein Industries Canada. And it's really the disconnect. It's the taking all the different verticals, bringing them together, focused on one thing, and trying to harness those market opportunities collaboratively. And, you know, I think what we're seeing with your organization, and one of the things that when anybody asks me about Protein Industries Canada is that I think one of the unique things about it is the collaborative approach. It is different than a lot of other programs that are out there. It's founded on collaboration, consortia, recognizing that the whole is better than the sum of the parts. So if I think about this 25 billion, the roadmap is predicated on increasing the amount we grow, how much we process, and how much we deliver. So like Australia, as we've just discussed, we don't get there by advancing only one sector of this plant-based ecosystem. So, you know, Murad, if I, you know, think about the fact that the plan itself is built on the strengths, Canada's strengths, much like Australia's is as well. And because it's something that you can actually validate, these are things that we know in a lot of ways. How does this help to unify the ecosystem around the goal and bring people together?
Well, Leslie, you know, those of us that have been around, you know, the whole PIC concept right from the very beginning, you know, we talked about things like what we call total plant utilization, the ability to take, you know, crops and plants and utilize each one of the fractions in advanced manufacturing and in commercialization of food products, you know, novel feed ingredients, and you know, basically utilizing these in this whole plant-based movement around the world. You know, we've taken a little bit of a different approach. I mean, Australia is focusing, you know, on ecosystem development, but if I look at the, you know, recent call by their Commonwealth on what they call their modern manufacturing initiative, you know, they're actually looking much more at bolstering the actual manufacturing capacity in the country. You know, so there's a view there that innovative companies will manufacture in Australia and commercialize and reach world markets, which I think is a very important aspect of reaching a target like 25 billion. We've taken a little bit of a different approach in Canada. We focused more on the innovation ecosystem and the development of the IP and the technologies and the advancement of that innovation. And then we expect then that the private sector will in fact invest in that production capacity that Bill mentioned. So we'll have to see which approach is actually faster to market. You know, I think that again, it's not whether one wins or the other wins, because I think both will ultimately commercialize. But, you know, as Bill said, we really have to focus on taking what we did in PIC, the encouraged collaboration, the actual products and advancement and innovation, and we need to commercialize. And if I look at, you know, my PIC project at AGT, you know, it's actually in partnership with 8 or 9 or 10, you know, global major CPG companies. So we're commercializing high moisture meat analogs, we're commercializing texturized protein, extruded flours, we're commercializing protein concentrates, starches into snack foods. You know, these are all of the uses of the 3 main streams, including all types of flours that are being taken from the crops that we are processing in our locations. So, you know, that's an important element of getting to that finish line. But I think it's important just to have a goal. And you know, what I was excited about with the 25 billion target is, sometimes when people can see an aspirational, forward-looking goal, it really does solidify that cohesiveness of the cluster and the ecosystem. And I think that, it was time for us, because we've been at this now for 3 full years. We're now looking at a phase 2, which will likely focus a bit more on that manufacturing capacity that I was talking about. And I think that the 25 billion will be a call to action, a unifying plan, and one that governments can get their heads around, one that we can measure, and one that will truly deliver that generational impact that we talked about.
Okay. Mariana, do you want to add anything to what Murad has just said from an Australia?
I did. I didn't actually touch on. So Murad's just touched on the modern manufacturing strategy for the country, and that was partly a reaction to COVID, but also Australia had quite a lot of hits we had bushfires, a lot of other disasters that really impacted our country. And I think what it did was it exposed our vulnerabilities in our supply chains. And so this, the modern manufacturing strategy, which is a $1.4 billion investment by the Commonwealth, was really targeted to build the scale and capacity as well as the resilience of our sector. So we did have a manufacturing sector in areas of priority, and food and beverage was identified as one of the 6 priority areas for the country. And I think partly the strategy is also to capture more of the value in Australia. What we do, as I said, we export over 80% of what particularly the commodity crops, and the real value that we wanted to do was capture some of that in Australia. So that was part of the reason for the modern manufacturing strategy. But I concur with Murad, and I think it's not an or strategy, it's an and strategy. And I think the market's big enough and there's room for every nation. And I think geographically, Australia does a few things that are a bit different and unique in the sense that Murad's already touched on it. We're the largest grower of lupins in the world. We also, because of our tropical and subtropical climates, it makes it an ideal ground for breeding new varieties of soybeans, mung beans, chickpeas, and so forth. So we are one of the world leaders in terms of breeding in new varieties of legumes that can grow in those climates. So I think there is what makes sense to grow in Canada won't necessarily make sense to grow in Australia. So I think it's a market that we can all compete in. It's growing, and I think we won't probably have enough food to feed the population. So I think it's about how we do become smarter. And I think it's critical in order to make the economics stack up, you need to actually use all the fractions of the plant in order to make it commercially viable.
I love the comment because we use this a lot. This is not an or strategy, it's an and strategy. And I think that's, it's a great way to put this. Bill, so, based on the conversation that's just taken place here, do you want to weigh in on this? And also the other part of this question would be, as we talked about the, collaboration and buy-in by a lot of parties is what's going to get us there. So who needs to be involved in order for this to be successful?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. And when we started out thinking about building an innovation cluster, it was really the concept of government, academia, and industry, kind of that conventional thinking about cluster theory. But over the course of time, I think what we've learned at Protein Industries Canada is that that's not quite enough. There was 2 elements missing. And so I think in addition to what traditional cluster theory would tell us around government, academia, and industry, we really need to bring in entrepreneurs. And I think you see that in the videos that we presented today. These highly specialized innovative food companies that are going to take the ingredients that we're producing in Western Canada and innovate and create new consumer products and new product categories that don't even exist today. That's a really critical piece of our ecosystem that we need to think about going forward. And the other would be the capital community. So, when we think about achieving $25 billion in sales, we need, I would say, our most critical piece over the next 5 to 7 years is building out ingredient manufacturing capacity. That's not tens of millions of dollars of investment. That could be upwards of billions of dollars of investment in processing capacity. So I think those are two critical elements that we really need to think about engaging in the ecosystem in very short order.
So it sounds like, if you think about what Mariana said and what you're saying here too, is, a key component of this is getting to the added value piece in order to deliver on the dollars or the opportunity rather. And that's why the participants need to be larger than maybe what was originally thought. So then if we now move to, we've got we have the goal, we have the why it makes sense. How do we actually move forward? So Mariana, in your situation, in every plan, there are key elements that are critical to success. In the Thiel situation, there were 3 key focus areas. Why were these so important for success? And was there any learning along the way?
Thank you, Leslie. I'll answer that question in 2 ways. First of all, I'll do it at a national level, and then I'll bring it down to a firm level in terms of what were the 3 sort of key elements, and I'll try and use some examples just as I bring those in. First of all, what we had to do was we had to have a common goal, a plan, one vision, and this was really important because what that was doing was really aligning everybody and aligning not activities, but also the investment so we could amplify the impact. So that was absolutely essential. And the fact that we now have one strategy that oversees the whole sector's view is really critical and has helped align investments. Secondly, what we've also found at a national level, we had to have a long-term investment. You've probably heard and seen a lot of changes in the Australian political environment. I think I'm now up to my 12th minister in a case of over 8 years. And we've had, I think, 6 prime ministers during that period. And so what that does bring is change. What industry wants is to make sure that there is a long-term commitment. If they're going to invest, particularly if they're going to invest in hard infrastructure, such as buildings, bricks and mortar, they need to be sure that, any sort of initiatives that are supporting that investment doesn't just evaporate when there's a new political party coming in play. So having the bipartisan agreements to make sure things don't change is absolutely critical. And collaboration is obviously the 3rd pillar that really underpins everything. But it's not just collaboration between government and industry, it's also collaboration between firms. One of the things that we've found has been absolutely essential is big and small companies working together. We ran a accelerator with Mars Corporation. Everyone's aware of Mars chocolates and other products. And Mars instigated this accelerator with us because what they wanted to do was give back to the industry, and we had expressions of interest, and we selected 6 companies with Mars to go through a tailored program to help them accelerate. And usually those startups or a new company that had formed but had some challenges. And the idea was to tap into the Mars network of resources to really accelerate their growth. And Mars did this not only because they wanted to help some of these firms, and obviously there was a bit of looking to see what other companies they could potentially acquire down the track. But so as a result of the relationship, one company called Grounded, they make cheese from cauliflower waste. And this company is now trading in New York, and they only started last year. So 2 years ago, they're now based in New York. But what Mars also did, what they said was really selfishly, they actually wanted to not give back, but they also found because they're such a big company, they became almost like the Titanic, really hard to turn, inflexible. A lot of their mechanisms for agility, particularly in this current business environment, was lost because their incentives are driven the other way. And what they said was they reminded themselves of the agility that's required when you're a small company and you have that flexibility because of the nature of the size. So that's at a national level, what we did. But we also found there was 3 critical components that we are critical to firms being able to execute and deliver on action. And I think Bill's touched on something really important. I'm tired of reports. As I've said to the Commonwealth here in Australia, we know what needs to be done. Let us get on with it. Stop doing another report. Stop saying what needs to be done. We know what needs to be done. So at the firm level, what we believe are three things, and this is what we've been focusing on over the last period of 8 years to equip our businesses to get on with it. First of all is they need to have the knowledge. And when I say knowledge, this is about putting the insights around information, putting insights around data around markets, around innovation, technology and science that's emerging. This is really critical because this will inform their investment and they'll be smarter about their investments. Secondly is the capability or the readiness of the firm. And I say readiness, not just in terms of market readiness or innovation readiness, the ability to innovate or the ability to enter a new market, say, for example, exports or even e-commerce, but also business readiness. Operationally, are they ready to embrace that? Are their systems appropriate to be able to handle the extra volume or the new customer, particularly a customer from overseas? And finally, connections. A big part of what we have done is connected businesses to researchers for the very first time. They actually don't know where the best expertise is within the ecosystem of research in Australia. So what we do is we act as a broker. We facilitate that connectivity, but we facilitate connectivity to researchers so they can actually work on the right technical challenge, but also where is the funding to help support, to subsidise. As I said, the companies are small. They need a helping hand to address some of the challenges, but also to de-risk their investment because they're just so small and don't have the resources. And then finally, when they do innovate, how do we connect them to a market? Because that obviously leads to an invoice and that leads to income and a potential to employ people and obviously prosperity for their business, the people that they employ, and then ultimately the nation. So we had different focus, key elements at different levels, which are really been critical to the success of what we've been delivering for the Australian food and agribusiness sector.
That's great. Thank you very much. So I'm getting this is kind of like an award show where you're getting the ding in the background saying, okay, your 2 minutes is up. I'll just, Bill, I think I'll just go to you last and we'll wrap it up from there because I know we're under a little bit of time pressure. Mariana just talked about the three sort of key areas of focus in order to action, what their goal was. And I think really in the roadmap to 25 billion, there are three also. And I think they're articulated as innovate, scale, and prosper. So in sort of 30 seconds or less, do you want to just provide some insight into why these three areas are important in order to get us to where we need to be?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. We landed on these three areas because we truly believe that innovation will underpin the growth of the sector. We're talking about the development of new product categories that don't exist today. So if we don't think about innovation for the crops that we produce in Canada, we'll miss an opportunity. From a scale perspective, we're talking about growing an industry to $25 billion today. How do we help scale organizations and an industry at a compound annual growth rate that's actually faster than the growth of the global market? And so we have to get from where we are today, best estimate, 3 billion to 25 billion, not an insignificant growth target and trajectory. So we need to help that industry scale. And then prosper for us is pushing as far down the value chain as we can because the value is going to be created by plant-based food. And so, it's critical that we invest in ingredient processing, but we can't stop there. We got to resist the temptation to move from commodity to ingredient and move from ingredient to finished food product. And so that's what's underpinning the growth of the sector for us is those three themes.
Okay, and Murad, I'll give you you want to have the final word before we wrap this up, if there's anything you want to add?
I think just Leslie, this is an exciting opportunity. It's now, and we have to seize the opportunity now because if we don't, someone else will.
Yeah. So I want to thank the three panelists. I think, we could talk for a whole lot longer about this. I think there's a whole lot to learn from the Australian experience. I think we have just really scratched the surface of what the roadmap looks like. And I think we can't lose sight of the fact that we are building basically a new industry here. The whole plant-based foods, as I said before, was niche and is very much mainstream, and in some ways this is a solution to a problem going forward. Two key other points that I want to make. Mirana's point about the and, not or, is absolutely correct. But time is of the essence. So there is absolutely a place for Canada in this, but we can't rest on our laurels. And that's why rallying around this plan and collaborating to move it forward is absolutely critical. So I just want to say thank you to the three of you. Of course, Bill, you're involved in organizing this, but Murad and certainly Mirana for getting up at the time and staying up to have this conversation with us. And thank you for the opportunity to be involved in this conversation. It's a very exciting time to be in the food industry, and particularly in the plant-based food space. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thanks. So this concludes the Protein Industries Canada Annual General Meeting. I want to thank everyone who is involved in the background for organizing it. I'm sitting here in Regina and there's a lot of cameras and computers going on. This doesn't just happen over a Zoom call. So thanks to everyone. And thank you mostly to our members and participants for taking time out of what I know is always a busy day to hear a little bit about the accomplishments that we've made and, more importantly, our plan forward. We look very forward to engaging with you over the next while as we build out and implement the road to 25 billion. Thank you very much.